Chapter 1354. Scapegoat. Song Zhiyan snorted coldly. Young Madame Ni's injuries weren't serious to begin with. Although she injured her brain by hitting the rock, as long as she was treated well and rested for a few days, she would be fine. Muzi wouldn't be needed for that injury at all. However, she happened to meet a quack who used other medicine on her. Not only did her originally wound not heal, but it even festered and caused pus. The more he spoke, the angrier he became. You have to know that the human brain is very complicated to begin with. Even us imperial physicians don't dare to be disrespectful when faced with such a situation. We have to be very careful. Otherwise, if we're not careful, such a wound might directly cause people to fall unconscious, blind, deaf, and all kinds of illnesses. The current young Madame Nia is in the worst situation. Her condition is already very serious. If we delay any longer, I'm afraid, the magistrate hurriedly asked. Then what should we do? Imperial physician Song sighed. Originally, young Madame Ni's injuries didn't require Muzi. Now only Muzi can save her. When Imperial physician Cui heard this, he said on the spot, Master Yan, what else do you have to say? Lord, you heard it. Master Yan didn't use that medicinal herb on Madame Yan at all back then. Madame Yan's previous injuries weren't serious either. All of this was orchestrated by the Yan family. They used their biological daughter to frame my daughter, just to keep the Muzi for themselves. Before the magistrate could speak, Nyetsong had already rushed forward. He didn't care if Master Yan was his father-in-law at all. He grabbed the man's collar and said with a livid expression, Are you still human? That's your daughter, your biological daughter. It's fine if you used her, but why didn't you treat her injuries properly? She's now the madam of my Nia family. Do you have any respect for my Nia family? Ha! As he spoke, he clenched his fists, as if he was about to punch him. The magistrate hurriedly pulled him back. There was no choice. There were not many people in the courtyard of Anha Garden. He could only stop it himself. Calm down, calm down. Young Master Nia, now is not the time to be rash. The most important thing is to quickly treat your wife's injuries. Nyetsong struggled for a while but could not break free. He gradually calmed down. He glared at Yen Yihai. Where's Muzi? Since Muzi is still in your hands, quickly hand it out, and help Imperial Physician Song save Yenya. Yen Yihai gritted his teeth and looked up, wanting to say something. The magistrate narrowed his eyes. Yen Yihai, now that the evidence is conclusive, what else do you have to say? It's a fact that you slandered Imperial Physician Cui and his daughter, and severely injured young Madame Nia. Come back to the government office with me and explain the matter clearly. Yen Yihai choked on his words. He clenched his fists and turned to look at Mrs. Yen. Lady Yen met his meaningful gaze, and immediately felt a chill in her heart. They had been husband and wife for many years. What did she not understand? Old Master wanted her to take the blame. But Lady Yen hesitated. After everyone returned to the government office, the magistrate began the interrogation again. Yen Yihai looked at Mrs. Yen a few times. In the end, Mrs. Yen could not withstand the pressure, and could only cry out and admit all her crimes. Lord, Lord, please spare my life. I was blinded by greed, and did not want Muzi to fall into the hands of others. I also hated Yenya for marrying a good husband, and was afraid that she would come back for revenge after a good life. That's why I had bad thoughts. All of this is my fault. Master, he did not know. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1355. Obtaining Muzi. And Yihai immediately looked at her in shock. What did you say? Everyone was speechless. Did he think that everyone else was stupid? However, Mrs. Yen gritted her teeth and confessed to the crime. Master Yen looked heartbroken, and even pleaded for Mrs. Yen. Moreover, there was no direct evidence to prove that Master Yen was behind this, so the magistrate had no choice but to convict Mrs. Yen. However, since Master Yen had previously planned to use Muzi to save his daughter's life, and now that Yen Ya's life was indeed at stake, it was a good opportunity to show Master Yan's fatherly heart. The magistrate immediately ordered Master Yen to send Muzi to Imperial Physician Song, so that he could use it. Yen Yihai's heart ached terribly, But since things had come to this, he could only hand by Muzi over with both hands. With Imperial Physician Song around, he could not use other medicines this time. As for Lady Yan, although she had confessed, the crime was not serious. After all, between Chuilan and Yenya who had been harmed, Chuilan had been harmed by rumors, but this situation was not easy to punish. As for Yenya, she was Mrs. Yan's daughter after all. If her mother was severely punished because of her, Yenya would still be accused of being unfilial. Therefore, in the end, the magistrate sentenced Mrs. Yan to 50 strokes of the paddle, and fined her some silver. He then sent her back to reflect on her actions. Mrs. Yan was carried back. Half of her life was gone after 50 strokes. However, just as they were about to leave the government office, Nyetsong suddenly stopped in his tracks. He looked at Mrs. Yan coldly and said, "Mrs. Yan is so heartless to my wife, but you still tricked her into giving you the key to the shop on Jinlan Street, and let Mother Chen rent it out in the name of the Yan family. You're really shameless." Yan Yihai was stunned. He really did not know about this. Nyetsong lifted his chin slightly. "Since Mrs. Yan thinks that the key looks good, I'll give it to you. I'll get someone to change the lock of the shop." Yan Yihai's face turned green as he shouted angrily at Mrs. Yan. "Aren't you going to hand over the key?" Lady Yan trembled and said shakily, "The key is in the residence." Yan Yihai was exasperated. "Is my Yan residence short of food or drink for you? Do you have to be greedy for that little rent? There are so many shops in our Yan family. Aren't they enough for you to deal with? You've really embarrassed me." Lady Yan had a bad temper to begin with. This time, she took the blame for Yan Yihai because she thought that the Yan residence could not lack a man in charge. It was for her and her daughter's future. However, not only was Yan Yihai not grateful, he even scolded her in front of everyone for that little bit of face. Lady Yan was immediately furious. She didn't even care about the pain of her injuries. She bared her teeth and scolded him. "What's the use of that little bit of money you gave me? Aren't you the one who controls the money at home? I'm the mistress of the household, and I manage the huge Yan residence. I only have so little money. What can I do? There are shops at home, but do you want me to manage them? You still have the cheek to criticize me. You bastard, I've already taken the blame." Before she could finish speaking, Yan Yihai stopped her. All right. There's no need to shout about this everywhere. We'll talk about it when we get back. You're still injured." Then he turned to Nyetsong and said, "I'll get someone to send the key to you when we get back. You should hurry back too. Yenya is still waiting for you at home." Although Lady Yan was unwilling, she still snorted and stopped talking. After the Yan family left, Nyetsong only watched from afar. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1356. Falling out after this incident. Nyetsong had completely fallen out with the Yan residents. Although they were still father and son-in-law on the surface, they both knew in their hearts that this was Yan Yihai's idea, and Mrs. Yan had taken the blame. Nyetsong was angry and did not interact with the Yan residents, so Yan Yihai could not say anything. However, Yan Yihai definitely couldn't bear to part with a big tree like the Nye family. Especially after this incident, the Yan family's reputation would definitely be damaged, and their business would probably plummet. After all, no one wanted to do business with someone with a problematic reputation. This time, they had really suffered a double loss. Because of this, Yan Yihai was even more unwilling to give up on the Nye family. It didn't matter. Their relationship was stiff now because Nyetsong was in a fit of anger. However, Yan Ya's mother was still in the residence, and Yenya had that kind of personality. Recently, she would be cold to Lady Yan and doted on his concubine. Later, he would ask her to persuade Yenya, and they would be meeting again soon. However, Yan Yihai did not expect this. As soon as he returned home, he heard from his servant that aunt who had heard that master had almost killed Yenya for a medicinal herb. She was disheartened and decided to cultivate in a Taoist temple. Now she had packed her bags and was ready to leave. Yan Yihai was furious when he heard that. He ran to concubine Hu's courtyard angrily, wanting her to give up on cultivating. However, aunt Hu held the hairpin to her neck and threatened to kill herself. Yan Yihai was shocked when the usually weak woman suddenly became so crazy. For a moment, he did not know what to do. He had encountered too many things today, causing his mind to be in a mess. However, at this moment, Niet Song came to the door again, saying that he was worried and wanted to personally retrieve the key. When he heard that Aunt Hu had almost committed suicide, he immediately rushed over and said that Yan Yihai was going to vent his anger on Aunt Hu due to the loss of Muzi. She took the key and protected Aunt Hu as she left the Yan residence. Yan Yihai did not dare to push it too far. If something happened to Aunt Hu, the Yan family would be worse off if word got out. They would no longer have a place in the capital. Therefore, when Niet Song left with Aunt Hu, Yan Yihai did not stop her. He thought that it would be good for her to calm down first. He did not expect that once she left, she would never have the chance to come back. Because the Taoist temple that concubine who went to later had a background, the Abbey Dean was once the eldest princess. Even though this princess was already old and had long cut off all ties with the imperial family, with Yan Yihai's status, even if this eldest princess was someone hated by the imperial family, he did not dare to offend her. Niet Song first brought Aunt Hu back to the Nia residence and let her meet Yenya. After the mother and daughter spoke, he arranged for her to stay and sent her to the Taoist temple another day. Then Niet Song returned to Anha Garden and looked at Gu Yundong, Shao Qingyuan and Song Dejiang, who were already sitting in the room. Song Dejiang was holding Muzi, but he was glaring at Gu Yundong as if he had a feud with her. Niet Song walked over and sat on the edge of the bed to look at Yin Ya's forehead. Her forehead was deliberately injured. In fact, Yin Ya's injuries were almost healed. She would be fine after resting for 2 more days. At this moment, the wound on her forehead had been wiped clean and she looked much more refreshed. Niet Song was relieved. Only then did he look at Song Dejiang, who still did not look too good. He hesitated for a moment before asking worriedly, "Imperial Physician Song, is there a problem? If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc. please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 1357. Killing 3 birds with 1 stone. Song Dejiang snorted. "There's nothing wrong with you. She's the one with the problem." As he spoke, he pointed at Gu Yundong. Gu Yundong looked innocent. "What's wrong with me? I got Muzi myself." "You still dare to say that you're doing this for Muzi? You clearly know that I'm on good terms with Imperial Physician Chui, yet you still want me to deceive him." Song Dejiang was exasperated. "How can I face him in the future?" "Imperial Physician Song, you can't say that." Gu Yundong's expression was even more upright as she said in all seriousness, "If it weren't for me, Imperial Physician Chui and his daughter would still be scolded by the neighbors. My plan was for you to lie, but this is a white lie. Look, Chui Lan has also been proven innocent. Since I've helped her, it's not too much for me to take Muzi as a reward, right?" Song Dejiang couldn't win against her, but she was right. He snorted and turned his head. He happened to see Yenya beside him. He did not expect Yenya to agree with him, and even look at Gu Yundong with slight envy and admiration. Actually, at first, Yenya did not know that Gu Yundong had thought of this method. She only thought that she and Niet Song had discussed it together. Only later did Niet Song tell her. Although Gu Yundong's main goal was Muzi, her plan was to kill 3 birds with 1 stone. Yenya had always stayed in the Yen residence, and had never seen such an intelligent woman like Gu Yundong. Niet Song also noticed her gaze. Perhaps because they had a good chat yesterday, he knew more about Yenya. Previously, he wanted Yenya to learn from Nanny Chi. Nanny Chi was capable and could always influence Yenya subtly. However, he had forgotten that Nanny Chi was a servant, and Yenya was the master, but she was also a master who was not recognized by the elders of the Nia family. Therefore, Nanny Chi could not treat Yenya lightly. Instead, she was restrained and must watch her distance to her master. Now that she had met Gu Yundong, Niet Song felt that this was fate. Therefore, he whispered into Yenya's ear, "Do you think she's very powerful?" "Yeah." Niet Song smiled. "She did a lot of things. I'll tell you slowly in the future." Just the fact that she had escaped to Xuanha Prefecture with her family was not something ordinary people could do. But if you want to see it with your own eyes, you can chat with her more. Sister Gu is going to open a milk tea shop in the capital. You've heard of it. It's the milk tea shop that Nieshuang mentioned to me. When the time comes, you can follow her to take a look. Is that really possible? Gu Yundong naturally heard their conversation. Facing Yen Ya's expectant gaze, she secretly heaved a sigh of relief. However, she smiled and nodded. Of course. But in the eyes of outsiders, you're still recuperating. It's better to go out later. Coincidentally, my shop needs to be renovated. I'll bring you to take a look when it's done. Yen Ya's eyes lit up slightly. She was a little excited and embarrassed as she said softly, "Thank you." Yenya had grown up without any friends because of her status, and Gu Yundong was the first. After making a deal, and seeing that Yenya still needed to rest, the few of them stood up and walked out. Song Dejiang held the Bai Muzi in his hand. "Leave this with me for now. I'll treat it first. I can't leave the capital now. Ask your mother to come to the capital sometime. I'll treat her. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc. please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 1358. Too many things in your brain. Gu Yundong looked at Bai Muzi and finally felt happy. There was finally hope of curing her mother's illness. This was a big matter that she had always taken to heart. Now, she could finally heave a sigh of relief. Nevertheless, "I'll write a letter back, but if my mother comes, my father will definitely accompany her. There are many things to do at home, so I'm afraid it'll take some time to arrange it. It's impossible to reach the capital in a short period of time. Keep it for now. When my parents come, I'll look for you." "Sure." Song Dejiang put away the herb and the few of them walked to the door. In order to avoid unnecessary trouble, Song Dejiang left the Nie residence first. Gu Yundong and Shao Qingyuan left after eating at the Nie residence. Bai Muzi's matter had come to an end. Next, Gu Yundong planned to renovate the shop. As for the matter with Marquis Huayin, Gu Yundong also wanted to sigh. According to Song Dejiang, he did not know much about Marquis Huayin. He only knew that Marquis Huayin was indeed quite powerful in the capital 20 years ago, but the emperor 20 years ago was the late emperor. The late emperor was muddle-headed and unreasonable, especially in recent years. A few years ago, Marquis Huayin had somehow offended the late emperor. Although the late emperor had not punished him, Marquis Huayin had slowly declined in the capital. Of course, a starving camel was still bigger than a horse. Even if it declined, it was still much better than ordinary families. Unfortunately, the descendants of Marquis Huayin in this generation didn't have much potential. They were all mediocre people who could listen to their superiors and work diligently, but they didn't have much talent to climb up. Otherwise, since they met the current emperor, as long as they had real talent, they would definitely be put in an important position. As for what happened in the Marquis Huayin's mansion, Song Dejiang did not know if any children had been lost 20 years ago. However, Song Dejiang promised that he would help them find out. From the looks of it, that was the only way. However, Gu Yundong still felt that she should find an opportunity to go to Marquis Huayin's mansion personally, or come into contact with some madam or old madam in the mansion to obtain information. Shao Qingyuan saw her sad face and couldn't help but sigh. He pulled her over and patted her head. "Aren't you tired of having so many things in your head?" We've just found Bai Muzi, and you're still busy renovating the shop. You also have to think about the Marquis Mansion's matters. You don't even give yourself time to rest. How tiring is that? Didn't we agree that there's no hurry for the Marquis Mansion's matters? Take it slow. Anyway, we're already in the capital, and they can't escape. Besides, don't you still have me? Don't you have a lot of things to do too? You still have to look for Song Dejiang tomorrow to learn medicine from him. Since Shao Qingyuan had come to the capital, it was rare for him to meet someone as skilled as Song Dejiang. Naturally, he had to learn some skills from him. Moreover, Song Dejiang liked to discuss medicine with Shao Qingyuan. He realized that Shao Qingyuan was especially smart in this aspect. Sometimes, when he went to a dead end, Shao Qingyuan would change his direction and give him ideas. Therefore, after Shao Qingyuan entered the palace, Song Dejiang refused to let him go. Even though they had only discussed for a day, both sides had gained a lot. Actually, part of the reason why Song Dejiang helped so readily this time was because of Shao Qingyuan. After all, he was the head of the Imperial Hospital. If he was exposed for doing such a thing, the consequences would be serious. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1359. Mrs. Yu Song Dejiang had been on leave for the 2 days, so he naturally wanted to take this opportunity to continue discussing with Shao Qingyuan. Gu Yundong knew that he liked medicine, so she could not wait to take on everything. She wanted him to focus on learning and work hard to learn all of Song Dejiang's skills. After all, this was a rare opportunity. Shao Qingyuan knew what she was thinking, and his heart instantly ached. He couldn't help but tighten his grip on her. None of my matters are as important as yours. Gu Yundong smiled and kissed him. All right, I promise you. I'll take my time and do one thing at a time. First ill. Before she could finish speaking, Shao Qingyuan pressed her down. First of all, we should have a child. The blanket was lifted. Before Gu Yundong could hide the shock on her face, it was covered by the blanket. The sky darkened, and the house was filled with spring. Gu Yundong woke up late the next day. Shao Qingyuan had already gone out. She could not help but rub her back. Suddenly, she felt lazy and did not want to get up. She did not want to go out. Anyway, Shao Qingyuan had told her to take it slow. He had worked so hard last night. Gu Yundong was a little indignant. She might as well rest at home today, and not go anywhere. When Tong Shuetao came in, she saw her miss lying on her back on the bed, looking at the bed curtains above her head and thinking about life. She couldn't help but be curious. Miss, what's wrong? It's fine. I'm just a little lazy and don't want to get up. Tong Shuetao immediately went to her side and asked, Then should I bring you food? Might as well. Tong Shuetao went out. Gu Yundong put on a cloak and walked to a shelf to rinse her mouth and wash her face. After washing up, she went back to bed. It was already cold in the capital at this time of the year. It was early October, and no one knew when it would snow in the capital. Not long after, Tong Shuetao brought in hot porridge and buns. Miss, when I went out this morning, I walked around the alley. I bought these buns at the entrance of the alley. I saw that the business there was especially good. I heard that it's an old business in Hutai Alley. It's been selling buns for many years. The skin is thin and the filling is big. Gu Yundong took it and tore open a corner. Instantly, gravy flowed out. The skin was indeed thin, and the filling was big. It looked quite appetizing. Miss, is it good? Yes, it's not bad. Buy some again tomorrow. Tong Shuetao was overjoyed. Sure. Gu Yundong ate porridge and buns at the same time. After eating and drinking her fill, she wanted to cover herself with a blanket and listen to Tong Shuetao talk about the novelty of Hutai Alley. Unexpectedly, her plan to stay in bed for the entire day was foiled. Someone knocked on the door outside. Tong Shuetao ran to open the door and came back to say that it was the sister-in-law from next door. Gu Yundong could only ask Tong Shuetao to invite her to the central room to rest for a while. She quickly got up, dressed, and tidied herself up. When she reappeared in the central room, it had been quite a while. The sister-in-law next door was looking up at the environment of the house with a hint of envy in her eyes. Gu Yundong had heard from Tong Shuetao that the house next door was also a triple-entry house. However, that house was left behind by their ancestors. Now their family was 3 generations in the same house, and all 20 to 30 people lived together. The old master only had 4 sons and a daughter. In addition, he had a few daughters-in-law and grandchildren from the next generation. They did not split up. Wouldn't the entire house seem crowded? The sister-in-law in front of her was the wife of the eldest son next door. Her surname was Yu. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1360. Wenzheng, the big tree. Gu Yundong smiled and went forward. You must be sister-in-law Yu. I'm sorry to have kept you waiting. Sister Gu, please don't say that. I came to disturb you without telling you in advance. Please don't take offense. How come? I saw that you guys had just moved in, so I came to take a look. I wanted to come over a few days ago, but I saw that you guys went out early in the morning and looked very busy, so I didn't come. You didn't go out today, so I made some bean buns at home for you to try. Don't despise them. Mrs. Yu pushed the basket on the table forward and smiled. Gu Yundong hurriedly smiled. How can I do that? I've troubled sister-in-law Yu. Sai will be neighbors in the future. There's no need to worry. I see that you've just arrived. If you need any help in the future, just look for us. Gu Yundong nodded. Then I won't stand on ceremony. There's no need to stand on ceremony. By the way, where are you guys from? Gu Yundong saw that she looked like she wanted to chat, and felt a little helpless. However, the other party did not have any ill intentions. She also wanted to understand the situation in Hatai Alley, so she chatted with her. We came from the Xuanhe Prefecture. Xuanhe Prefecture? That's far away. It's your first time in the capital, so you have to be more careful. People will freeze to death in another 10 days or so. You have to prepare the charcoal first, or your lives won't be easy. All right, thank you for your reminder, sister-in-law. Mrs. Yu waved her hand. What kind of reminder is that? I was just saying. By the way, what are you guys doing in the capital? Is your man preparing to participate in the imperial examination? Gu Yundong's mouth twitched. You think too much. It was not the time to come to the capital to participate in the imperial examination. Moreover, Hatai Alley was lively and noisy. It was not suitable for students to buy a house and live there. Gu Yundong smiled. No, we're just here to open a small shop and do some small business. I see. Mrs. Yu nodded. She knew what to do. Then I have to tell you first. It's not easy to do business in the capital, especially opening a shop. It's best to find a backer. Otherwise, someone will find trouble. Right? Gu Yundong frowned. Mrs. Yu was right. Whether it was in Fengkai County or the Xuanhe Prefecture, she did have someone backing her up. Although the shop in the capital was also in partnership with Madame Dai, Nie Shuang, and the others, most of their forces were in the Xuanhe Prefecture. Moreover, there were too many high-ranking officials and nobles in the capital. Her milk tea shop was unique. Who knew how many people would covet it? She had no foundation in the capital. If she opened her business rashly, she would easily become a fat piece of meat in the eyes of others. Yes, she had to find a backer, and one that no one dared to provoke. Gu Yundong began to choose suitable candidates in her mind. In the end, she thought of Qin Wenzheng. Well, he was indeed a big tree here. According to Nyetsong, Qin Wenzheng had just arrived in the capital when he was promoted to the Assistant Minister of Official Personnel Affairs by the Emperor. In the past, Qin Wenzheng was only a small official in the Hanlin Academy. His position immediately skipped a few levels when the new emperor ascended the throne, and it shocked many people. Of course, there were also people in the royal court who were unconvinced. However, Qin Wenzheng's name was already famous. The things he had done for the emperor in the past had been suppressed. Now that they had all been exposed, these incidents added up to more merit than many officials did in the royal court. If anyone was unconvinced, they could compete. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1361. Return gift. Moreover, some of the emperor's trusted aides actually knew Qin Wenzheng's identity and were naturally on his side. Actually, the rank of an official was secondary. The most important thing was that the current Qin Wenzheng was a favored minister in front of the emperor. Everyone could see how much the emperor valued him. His future was limitless. Those who were smart knew that they should prioritize befriending him. Therefore, to Gu Yundong, Qin Wenzheng was definitely the best candidate to be her backer. She just didn't know when he would return to the capital. Gu Yundong thought about it and quickly suppressed everything. Only then did she continue talking with Mrs. Yu. Mrs. Yu chatted until almost noon. She only went back when it was time to cook. She carried a basket of bean buns, and Gu Yundong asked Tong Shuetao to return the gift with the white sugar and canned food. This had always been her return gift. Mrs. Yu took a look and her face was filled with surprise. She had never seen canned food before, but white sugar was rare in the capital. However, they were almost never gifts, especially not the first meeting gift. Not only was this thing expensive, But it was also not easy to buy. This daughter-in-law of the Shao family was really generous. Mrs. Yu walked out of the Shao family's house in a daze. Gu Yundong finally heaved a sigh of relief. Tong Shuitao poured her a cup of hot tea and sighed. Sister-in-law Yu is really eloquent. Gu Yundong nodded in agreement. It was also a skill to be able to chat so well with the first time they met. However, she did know a lot from Mrs. Yu. The most important thing now was to prepare the charcoal fire, lest they wouldn't have a place to buy it when it got cold. Thus, in the afternoon, Gu Yundong brought Tong Shuitao out. The two of them went to the shop first. Last time, because of Mother Chun, they only stayed at the door for a moment, and did not have the time to take a good look at the inside. Due to by Muzi's matter, she did not have the time to come over these few days. Since she was out today, she could take a look at the situation of the shop. She would draw the blueprint later, so that she could find someone to renovate it. Gu Yundong opened the door of the shop, and saw someone peeking out from the shop next door. They might suspect that she was here to rent a house. Gu Yundong ignored them and strolled around the shop. Perhaps Mother Chen had planned to rent it out, so the shop was very clean. At this moment, there was only a little dust, and it did not look messy. The shop here was somewhat similar to the one in the Xuanhe prefecture, but this one was bigger. Another thing was that the position of the backyard was different. It would not make much of a difference if she renovated it later. Gu Yundong looked at the shop in front of her, and then at the backyard. The backyard was originally for people to live in. It was also a huge project to set it up as private rooms. As for the second floor, Gu Yundong was very satisfied after looking at it. This floor was slightly higher and had a better view. It was also as spacious as the first floor and could receive many guests. Gu Yundong rubbed her chin and walked around the shop. Finally, she went back in satisfaction. On the way back, they strolled around Hutai Alley and found a few shops with relatively fair prices. After buying things like charcoals and furnaces and heaters to ward off the cold, the two of them slowly returned home. Seeing that it was still early, Gu Yundong took out a brush and paper, and began to draw the renovation plan of the shop. Actually, there was no need to think too much about it. The interior decoration was similar to the Xuanhe Prefecture's new tea pavilion. Gu Yundong felt that since it was a branch, it would be best if the shops were all of the same style. That way, they would have more characteristics. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1362. Carpenter Peng. Therefore, Gu Yundong quickly had some ideas in her mind. She drew quickly and steadily, and it did not take long for her to draw the rough blueprint. Then, she began to adjust and modify where she was not satisfied. After the painting was done, Shao Qingyuan happened to return. Gu Yundong quickly showed him the blueprint. How is it? Do you feel that there's anything that needs to be changed? There are even more madams and young ladies from aristocratic families in the capital. Most of them have their own circles or people whom they don't like. They care more about their status. They have clear ranks and might need too few rooms. Gu Yundong pondered for a moment. That was indeed the case. These madams of aristocratic families valued their privacy. They were still a little different from the Xuanhe prefecture. There were too many high-ranking officials and nobles in the capital. Gu Yundong pointed at the blueprint. So the second floor should also be private rooms? Yeah. Gu Yundong was about to draw another one when Shao Qingyuan pulled her over. It's late. You should draw tomorrow. Let's eat first. Okay. Gu Yundong immediately put down the brush and paper in her hand. The next day, Shao Qingyuan didn't go out again. After Song Dijiang's rest days ended, he still had to be on duty at the Imperial Hospital. Gu Yundong sat in her room and started to paint again on the design of the second floor. In the afternoon, she went to look for a carpenter with Shao Qingyuan. She had been familiar with Uncle Feng. Now that she had to find an unfamiliar carpenter, she would probably have to explain what she had drawn again. The carpenter they found was introduced by Niekong. His surname was Peng, and it was said that his craftsmanship was very good. He was also reliable and had a fair price. When Gu Yundong and the other man went over, Carpenter Peng was making a box cage. There was a lot of demand for carpenters these days, so there were also many people in this industry. Naturally, the competition was equally intense. According to Nyetsong, Carpenter Peng's business was mediocre. He took on the work of his neighbors because he worked slowly and had a stubborn temper. One of his 2 disciples was mute, and the other was a taciturn person. But it had to be said that there was a reason for slow work to produce fine work. Carpenter Peng was slow because he was meticulous. If there was anything wrong, he would rather restart the work. He was very responsible when doing things. Even if you urged him to hurry, he would not hand it over casually. In Gu Yundong's opinion, this should be considered Carpenter Peng's obsessive-compulsive disorder. Therefore, no one came to look for him for urgent work. In addition, there were some competitors who did not like Carpenter Peng and ruined his reputation outside. He and his 2 disciples were people who worked hard and did not know how to explain. As time passed, business naturally decreased. Fortunately, his neighbors knew his personality and craftsmanship. Most of them were relieved to leave it to him. Carpenter Peng's current work was also recommended by his old clients. For example, Gu Yundong. Nyetsong knew him because when he got married previously, he had seen an exquisite makeup box from Yenya. He knew that aunt who had gotten someone to get Carpenter Peng to make it a few years ago. After using it for a few years, the makeup box was still very sturdy and beautiful. Later on, Nyetsong also asked Carpenter Peng to make a few things. They were all very good. This time, Gu Yundong wanted to renovate the shop, so he directly introduced him to her. Carpenter Peng was in his 30s and was not good with words. When he saw Gu Yundong and Shao Qingyuan enter, he quickly stood up and let them sit. Then that was it. He didn't want to pour them a glass of water. He turned around and continued to make his box. Gu Yundong had heard that he had gotten married a few years ago. Later, his wife had passed away and he did not even have a child. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1363. Slow work. It was not that no one had tried to matchmake him all these years, but when they heard that his 2 disciples had no parents and had to rely on him to raise them, they all retreated. Moreover, Carpenter Peng did not seem to be interested in getting married and having children, so he had been single until now. However, to him his 2 disciples were equivalent to his biological sons. Fortunately, although his 2 disciples were also taciturn, they still knew how to treat their guests. They hurriedly poured water for them, and continued to stand at the side to help Carpenter Peng. Gu Yundong watched from the side for a moment, and knew that Carpenter Peng was indeed the kind of person who was neither arrogant nor rash. He was very stable. Gu Yundong explained the purpose of her visit. I want to renovate a shop. It has 2 floors and a courtyard at the back. It's at Jinlan Street. The shop is a little big, so it might take some time. I wonder if Master Peng can take on this job. Carpenter Peng was stunned for a moment. A shop. And it was a 2-story one? Before he could say anything, the 2 disciples behind him looked at Gu Yundong and Shao Qingyuan excitedly. This was a big job. If they did it well, the payment this time should not be low. Actually, they had very little work to do now, especially when the weather was cold. Their business was even less. When the box in their master's hand was ready, they would have nothing to do. They did not expect such a huge job to suddenly come. How could they not be excited? His 2 disciples looked at Carpenter Peng expectantly. Carpenter Peng quickly came back to his senses. His eyes were also slightly glowing, and he rubbed his hands uncomfortably. After pausing for a moment, he still reminded them in advance. I can accept the job, but I'll tell you the truth. I work slowly, especially for such a big shop. I have to take a look first and discuss with you what's appropriate. I can't deliver work in a short period of time. It doesn't matter. As long as the work is done well, it can take as long as needed. If it's convenient for Master Peng, I can take you to see the shop now. I've already drawn out how to renovate the shop. We can sit down and talk about it later. Carpenter Peng paused and glanced at the box cage in his hand. This box was actually already done. It could be handed over after a little polishing. He would continue working when he came back tonight. He could send it to the client tomorrow morning. Hence he stood up. All right. I'll go take a look at the shop now. Carpenter Peng got up, took off his apron, and went inside to wash his hands and face. He then followed Gu Yundong out. His 2 disciples hurriedly followed. On the way, Carpenter Peng learned from Gu Yundong that they had been introduced by Niekong. Carpenter Peng still had some impression of Niekong. He was quite happy and grateful. When he arrived at Jinlan Street and saw the 2-story shop, Carpenter Peng realized that it was even bigger than he had imagined. He brought his 2 disciples around and circled it twice before returning to the shop in front. When he saw Gu Yundong and Shao Qingyuan talking, he quickly went forward excitedly. "Young Master Shao, Madam Shao, will take on this job." Gu Yundong nodded and asked them to sit. Then she took out the blueprint. "In that case, I'll tell Master Peng about the situation of the shop." "Okay, go ahead. My shop will sell milk tea. It's similar to a tea house, but it's different from ordinary tea houses. My tea house is specially used to receive women, so the decorations inside are different from other shops. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 1364. Accepting the job specializing in receiving women? This was the first time Carpenter Peng had heard of this. He felt that it was very novel. Gu Yundong pointed at the blueprint. "This is what the interior of the shop looks like. Master Peng, take a look." As expected, Carpenter Peng lowered his head, and his eyes immediately lit up. This blueprint was too clear. Almost at first glance, he could imagine what the shop would become in the future. Carpenter Peng had also renovated shops in the past. Most of the time, it was the client who told him where to add cabinets and boxes. No one had ever drawn such a detailed blueprint to tell him the final result. It was just that there were some things that he could not understand, but Gu Yundong would explain. There were even some data on it. Carpenter Peng looked at the blueprint lovingly. Even his 2 disciples standing behind him could not help but swallow their saliva. After introducing the renovations to the shop in front and the courtyard at the back, it was finally time for the situation on the 2nd floor. Carpenter Peng frowned slightly when he saw the 2nd floor. Gu Yundong knew how to draw, but she did not know much about architectural design. In the past, when she was building a house, Feng Danning would tell her how to modify it. He would tell her which parts were unreasonable and what could not be done. Or if the data was too idealistic, she would slowly modify what problems might arise. Gu Yundong had to listen to Carpenter Peng's professional opinion. As expected, Carpenter Peng shook his head at some places on the 2nd floor. To make the 2nd floor look like private rooms, the project was a little big. Many places had to be demolished and rebuilt, so Gu Yundong's blueprint was not very accurate. There was no other way. Gu Yundong handed the blueprint to Carpenter Peng. "How about this? I'll tell you how many rooms I want on the 2nd floor, and how the layout is. Master Peng, you can decide for yourself after taking the measurements. How about that?" Carpenter Peng was stunned. "Is that appropriate?" "Yes, of course." Carpenter Peng looked at Shao Qingyuan again. After all, in their eyes, Shao Qingyuan was the head of the family. Shao Qingyuan nodded. "Listen to her." Carpenter Peng was relieved. Gu Yundong and Carpenter Peng talked about some details. Both parties signed a contract and confirmed that Master Peng would start work the next day. After Gu Yundong paid the deposit and the key to the shop, the group left. Now that the renovation was done, the next step was to recruit people. This gave Gu Yundong a headache. In the Xuanhe Prefecture, Madame Dai and Nie Shuang had taken care of recruitment matters. She had only arranged for 2 people. Now that she was in the capital, she was really unfamiliar with the place. Where could she recruit people? Especially since the milk tea shop was a novel business, she was worried about hiring ordinary people to work in the shop. It seemed that she could only buy some. The others were fine. They could be bought for training and employment. It was just that the shopkeeper was not easy to find. Gu Yundong decided to ask for Madame Guest's opinion when she went to the Qin residence tomorrow. A few days ago, the Qin family closed their doors and refused guests, so Gu Yundong did not disturb them for the time being. Yesterday, she asked Tong Shuetao to send a card to the Qin family to confirm that she would come tomorrow. Gu Yundong did not know much about the rules of the wealthy families in the capital. It was only when she mentioned it to Yenya 2 days ago that she remembered that she should send the card first, so that she would not have missed it. Shao Qingyuan knew that she was going to the Qin residence, so he turned around and asked her, "Shall I go with you tomorrow?" "No need. Qin Wenzheng isn't back yet. You'll just sit there and do nothing even if you go. How boring would that be?" Shao Qingyuan thought about it and agreed, so he didn't mention it again. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1365. I want this shop. The next morning, Gu Yundong brought Tong Shuitao directly to the Qin residence. Unexpectedly, not long after they left, Carpenter Pang's disciple called Pang Shan hurriedly ran over and knocked on the door. Shao Qingyuan was reading a medical book. Song Dejiang had given it to him the day before yesterday, and asked him to read it first before discussing it with him. Shao Qingyuan was very interested in this medical book. Hearing the knock on the door, Shaowen immediately went to open it. Pang Shan, who was at the door, staggered and almost fell in. Shaowen quickly supported him and asked, "Why are you so flustered? What happened?" Pang Shan swallowed his dry throat and said in a panic, Someone came to the shop to cause trouble. Master is not allowed to work." Shaowen frowned and quickly brought him to look for Shao Qingyuan. When Shao Qingyuan heard this, he narrowed his eyes slightly, put down the medical book, and walked towards the door. "Let's go to the shop to take a look." Shaowen and Pang Shan hurriedly followed. Fortunately, they were not too far from Jinlan Street, and arrived not long after. At this moment, there were already a few people poking their heads out and pointing at the entrance of 68, Jinlan Street. At this moment, there were two groups of people confronting each other in the shop. On one side was Master Pang and his disciple, and on the other side, it looked like they were deliberately looking for trouble with 5 or 6 people. The leader was dressed well, like a young master from a rich family. Behind him were his servants. At this moment, this young master-like person sized up Carpenter Pang from head to toe. His eyes were filled with disdain as he said condescendingly, "I'll say it again. I have bought this shop. I'll naturally get someone to repair it later. You guys should leave." Carpenter Pang's face turned red. He was not good with words to begin with, and this disciple beside him was mute. However, he was the one who signed the contract. How could he leave so easily? "Young Master Tang, I've already discussed it with the boss. I don't care if you've discussed it or not. Anyway, I'll leave my words here. If you continue to work here, I won't be polite to you. Think about it yourself. Should you leave now, or should I get someone to throw you out?" Young Master Tang was also very unhappy. He had long taken a fancy to this shop. However, he did not expect that he would act too late. Just a day later, the shop was bought by a woman surnamed Nia. He had asked around. That woman surnamed Nia was not from the capital. Her family was in Shuanhe Prefecture, and she was rich. That was why she came to the capital to buy a shop. Her only backer in the capital was her brother, Niet Song, who was a 7th grade official. It was just a 7th rank official. Young Master Tang didn't fancy him. After all, he wasn't someone without a backer. He even felt that it was the Nia family's honor that he had taken a fancy to this shop. Therefore, young Master Tang came to look for her twice, and said that he wanted to buy it. Although he had lowered the price, he was not bullying others, right? However, that woman surnamed Nia did not agree. Young Master Tang felt that she did not know what was good for her, and wanted to use other methods. But at this moment, that woman actually left behind this shop and ran back to the Shuanhe Prefecture. Young Master Tang thought that Nia Shuang was afraid of offending him, but she didn't want to sell the shop, so she simply escaped reality. As a result, this shop had been empty. Young Master Tang's temper even rose. "If you have the ability, just leave it here. I'll keep an eye on you and see when you will return to open the shop. If you dare to open the shop, I will dare to come and find trouble. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 1366. 100,000 Taels. Young Master Tang did not look for Niet Song, and just watched over the shop for half a year. Unexpectedly, a servant had come to report some time ago that a mother of the Yin family was planning to rent out the shop. However, after a day, She said that she was not renting anymore. Young Master Tang was confused when the shop opened. A carpenter began to repair the shop. They were clearly planning to do business. Could it be that the woman surnamed Nya had returned? Alright, she had finally stopped hiding after half a year. Young Master Tang led his men over. Unexpectedly, when he asked, Carpenter Pang said that the owner of the shop was a couple. The male owner's surname was Shao and he did not know any woman with the surname Nya. Young Master Tang felt that Nya Shuang might have secretly sold the shop. Alright, since she wanted to sell it, why didn't she sell it to him back then? Just as he was thinking, there was suddenly a commotion outside. 3 men walked in one after another. Carpenter Pang turned around and saw that it was Shao Qingyuan. He immediately heaved a sigh of relief. Young Master Shao. Shao Qingyuan nodded and looked at Young Master Tang. Young Master Tang also looked at him. He felt that the other party's gaze was so cold that he could not help but take a step back. The servant behind him hurriedly supported him and asked softly, Young Master, are you cold? Get lost. No one will think you're mute if you don't speak. Young Master Tang turned around and hit his head. Then he secretly took 2 deep breaths and looked at Shao Qingyuan again, as if the person who had retreated just now was not him. He sized up Shao Qingyuan. Yes, he didn't know him. Are you the owner of this shop? Who are you? Shao Qingyuan also looked at him. My surname is Tang. Tang Qijing. Young Master Tang raised his chin slightly. I've never seen you before. You're not from the capital, right? I'm not. Tang Qijing was instantly relieved. When he saw the murderous aura on this person just now, his heart was beating like a drum. He pointed at the shop and said, I'll buy this shop. Name a price. Shao Qingyuan admired his wife. Why was it that every time she took a fancy to a shop, someone wanted to snatch it? Oh, that's not right. Her wife did not buy this shop. So this person was provoked by Nya Shuang? Shao Qingyuan saw his high and mighty appearance and thought that he must have something to rely on. But 100,000 taels, he said slowly. Tang Qijing was stunned and almost choked on his own saliva. How much did you say? 100,000 taels, Shao Qingyuan repeated. If you pay 100,000 taels, this shop will be yours. Have you gone crazy from poverty? 100,000 taels? It was more than enough to buy 10 or 20 shops. He actually asked for an exorbitant price. Was he toying with him? When others heard the conversation at the door, someone quickly laughed. After being glared at by the servants behind Tang Qijing, those people immediately lowered their heads and covered their mouths. Unexpectedly, Shao Qingyuan nodded at Tang Qijing. I've been a little poor recently. My family bought a new house and some assets, so I'm a little tight on money, so I didn't even have time to buy servants. The price of this shop is 100,000 taels. It should be enough. Tang Qijing. CKU. He was so angry that he laughed. Do you think that's possible? Who the hell will buy your shop for 100,000 taels? Since you think it's impossible, why are you still here? Shao Qingyuan's face turned cold. Tang Qijing felt that the other party was provoking him and did not take him seriously at all. Okay, you're messing with me. He pointed at him and trembled with anger. He immediately said to the servants behind him, smash this place. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1367. Could he be the Shao Qingyuan? The servants were about to make a move. You can't smash it. Carpenter Pang hurriedly wanted to make a move. Although they had just started work, they had brought a lot of wood over. It would be a loss to smash it. However, how could the servants of the Tang family listen to him? One of them kicked a stool at the side. However, just as he was about to walk forward, someone suddenly blocked his way. Shaowen suddenly grabbed his hand, turned around, and flipped forward. This person fell to the ground. Seeing this, the servants of the Tang family instantly surrounded him. The 4 of them fought against Shaowen alone, but they actually did not have the upper hand. Tang Qijing instantly felt that things were a little tricky. He regretted bringing those servants along today. He should have brought the 2 skilled ones along. Now that the 4 of them could not even beat one person, if they lost later, where would he put his face? Tang Kaijing's eyes darted to Shao Qingyuan's face. Then he realized that this murderous aura and bulging muscles might be stronger. He immediately gave up. A wise man submits to circumstances. He understood. Hence Tang Qijing shouted, "Stop, come back." The four of them already felt that they were going to lose. When they heard this order, they retreated without a word. One of them did not retreat in time, and was kicked down by Shaowen. He quickly got up and continued to run to Tang Kaijing's side. Shaowen was speechless. He also silently returned behind Shao Qingyuan. Tang Qijing exhaled and pointed at Shao Qingyuan. "All right, you're quite bold. If you have the ability, tell me your name." Shao Qingyuan was speechless. Was he stupid? What? You don't have balls? You don't even dare to say your name. Are you afraid that I'll take revenge on you later? At this moment, even though he knew that it was a provocation, Shao Qingyuan still said, "Shao Qingyuan." "All right, Shao Qingyuan, right? Just you wait." Then, Tang Qijing hurriedly led the few of them to the door. However, not long after he walked out, he suddenly stopped and frowned. He turned around and asked, "What did he say his name was just now?" Shao Qingyuan. The servant behind him also reacted. "Young master, could he be that Shao Qingyuan?" Tang Qijing shook his head. "How can it be so coincidental? It must be someone with the same name. But what if? Didn't they say that Shao Qingyuan is a kind person who helps the world? Which kind person doesn't look benevolent? Is he benevolent?" The servant thought for a moment, and felt that what the young master said made sense. However, he quickly shook his head and still felt that it was a little suspicious. "But young master, Shao Qingyuan is from Xuanhe Prefecture, and the owner of this shop is also from Xuanhe Prefecture. Isn't this a little too coincidental? Moreover, his age matches." Tang Kaijing's expression was a little dark. If it was really Shao Qingyuan, it did not seem appropriate for him to find fault with him. "Young master, why don't we give up on this shop? Back then you wanted to buy this shop to destroy the Chun family's shop opposite. Isn't the Chun family shop opposite not doing much business now without you doing anything?" Tang Qijing thought about it and felt that it made sense. He looked at the servant behind him in agreement. "You're right. I'm busy. That shop is no longer worth my attention. Moreover, I don't think the feng shui of this street is good. Look at the Chun family. They've only been open for half a year, and they're already in this state. Wouldn't I be at a disadvantage if I buy it?" Of course. The servant nodded repeatedly. However, after taking a few steps he asked, "Young master, should we tell the royal prince that Shao Qingyuan came to the capital? If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc. Please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 1368. Meeting Madame Guogin. Tang Qijing frowned. The royal prince, Yilan, was the descendant of an aristocratic family who had said that he had by Muzi and asked Shao Qingyuan to be his servant for a year. He thought for a moment and shook his head. "Forget it. We're not sure if this person is that Shao Qingyuan. If we make a mistake later, the young royal prince will think that I tricked him and skin me alive." Besides, he was not familiar with the royal prince. It was better not to get involved in the matter between that man and Shao Qingyuan. Tang Qijing looked back at the shop and left in a hurry with his subordinates. Only when they were far away did Shao Qingyuan let Carpenter Pang continue. Carpenter Pang was a little worried and asked him, "Will young Master Tang come again?" "No. That Tang guy came to find trouble, and looked like he was showing off." However, when he saw that he could not take advantage of the situation, he immediately left. Although he was a little cowardly, it was obvious that he was not a rash person. He would probably figure out the stranger's identity before taking action. As for after the investigation, he probably wouldn't come again. However, the others didn't know that the shopkeeper of the shop next door quickly came over and said to Shao Qingyuan, "Young master, do you know who young Master Tang was just now?" "Who is it?" Shao Qingyuan really didn't know him. That person said mysteriously, "His mother is the cousin of Marquis Huayin, and has Marquis Huayin backing her. If you hit his people directly, he will definitely settle scores with you later." Marquis Huayin? Shao Qingyuan narrowed his eyes. He didn't expect Tang Qijing to be related to Marquis Huayin. Shao Qingyuan fell silent for a moment. The shopkeeper who spoke saw his worried expression and immediately shook his head. He didn't say anything else and turned around to leave. Shao walked to Shao Qingyuan's side and asked in a low voice, "Young master, will everything be all right?" "It's fine." Shao Qingyuan comforted Carpenter Pang and the other two. He told them to do whatever they had to and not worry about anything else. Then he brought Shao back to his house in Hutai Alley. Shao saw that his young master did not seem to care at all. He picked up the medical book again and read it. At this moment, Yundong had already entered the Qin residence. Madame Gu was very happy to see her. She pulled her and said, "You've been in the capital for a few days. Why are you only here now? The guests I rejected at the door are others. I couldn't wait to welcome you." As he spoke, a small figure ran over from outside. Qin Anning rushed into Yundong's arms eagerly. "Sister Gu, I haven't seen you in a long time. I miss you so much." "Has Anning grown taller?" Grinning, Qin Anning spun around in front of her and asked, "Don't I look prettier too?" "Yes, you look even better." When Madame Gu heard this, she could not help but hold her forehead. "How can you be so thick-skinned?" Qin Anning pouted and said to Yundong, "Sister Gu, the capital is so boring. I want to go back to Fengkai County. I think you're used to being wild." Previously, in Fengkai County, Qin Wenzheng had taken in many students. Although there was a difference between men and women, these people were still fellow disciples to Anning. Occasionally, they would bring her to play and take good care of her. Qin Wenzheng wouldn't restrain her either. After she went to Yongfu village, she couldn't even stay in the house and ran out every other day. However, it was different in the capital, especially since Qin Wenzheng's current identity was an important minister in the court. Anning's every move was seen by others. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1369. Your Shao Qingyuan is enough. Madame Gu wanted Qin Anning to learn some rules and etiquette, but Qin Wenzheng did not care. He doted on his daughter very much, and only said that everything was fine as long as she was happy. There was no need to be so rigid like the other women from aristocratic families. It was tiring to look at them. However, Madame Gu felt that if she did not teach Anning now, she would definitely be criticized in the future. What if Anning could not stand those rumors at that time, and her reputation was ruined? Would Anning be happy then? Madame Gu and Qin Wenzheng had a disagreement over their daughter's education, but they could not determine who was right and who was wrong. Madame Gu only complained to Yundong. She would not spout nonsense in front of others. Yundong did not know what to do. She did not have any children. Her younger siblings were all raised independently. Moreover, their environment and status were different, so she could not give any suggestions. She lowered her head slightly and looked at the lively little girl in front of her. She smiled and said, "I'm afraid you won't be able to return to Fengkai County in a short period of time." Anning sighed and said worriedly like a little adult, "Things don't go well in this world. It's really too difficult for me." Pfft. Yundong was amused. Seeing her, Yundong could not help but think of the children at home. She had already written a letter and sent a pigeon back. If her parents came to the capital, Kiki would probably follow them. However, Yunshu and Yuanji had to study, so they might not come. Madame Gu pointed at Anning. "All right, I'll talk to your sister Gu. Go play first." Oh. Qin Anning could not bear to part with Yundong. However, although she was lively and active, she was also a sensible person. Knowing that they had serious matters to discuss, she bid them farewell and returned to her courtyard. The Qin family's house had 5 courtyards. Qin Wenzheng had made so many contributions to the imperial court. As soon as he arrived, the emperor of the capital gave him a residence, and it was an especially good location. Yundong had just walked over and realized that besides the few people they had brought from Fengkai County, they had bought a few more families of servants. They were all quietly doing their jobs and tidying up the huge mansion. Yundong was so envious that her eyes turned red. Why was it so difficult for her to buy a 3-yard house? She sighed in grief and indignation before talking about opening her shop. "Last time Nie Shuang bought a shop. I came over this time to renovate it. When the time comes, I will choose a good day to open it. Madame Guest's interest was immediately piqued. Milk tea shop, new tea pavilion. She had been to the new tea pavilion in the Xuanhe prefecture, but only once. After all, her family was in Fengkai County, so it was impossible for her to often go to the Xuanhe prefecture to drink milk tea. However, after that one visit, Madame Gu started to miss it. Now that she heard that the capital was also going to have it, she was immediately a little excited. Seeing this, Yundong immediately smiled at her. Yes, it's a milk tea shop. Are you interested in cooperation? Seeing her ulterior motive, Madame Gu could not help but laugh. You already have 3 bosses. You have money and ability. Why do you still need me to cooperate? Of course I do, Yundong said matter-of-factly. I need your identity. If others knew that Madame Qin is a partner of this shop, who would dare to cause trouble? Madame Gu was stunned for a moment before she smiled. Why do you need my identity? Your Shao Qingyuan is enough, right? If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1370. Shao Qingyuan's reputation. Yundong was confused. Brother Shao. Seeing her like this, Madame Gu suddenly understood. It seems that you still don't know your Shao Qingyuan's reputation in the capital. Yundong really did not know. She subconsciously straightened her back and hurriedly asked, Tell me what happened. What happened to my brother Shao's reputation? Mrs. Gu coughed lightly and took a sip of water before slowly talking about some things she had heard not long ago. Very few people had seen Shao Qingyuan, but most people in the capital, especially the influential families, knew this name. The cowpox vaccination method was a very great achievement. To a country where many people died every year because of smallpox, this was an invention that transcended eras. Whether it was the emperor or others who were born in this dynasty and witnessed it with their own eyes, it was a very deep mark in history. In fact, it would have been fine if that was all. There were countless achievements in this world, and not everyone would be so famous. Most of them became famous after death, and were only remembered by the world. However, this matter had been specially promoted by the emperor. Shao Qingyuan, a country bumpkin who was not even a doctor, actually dared to personally inoculate the prince. This courage, boldness, and fearlessness of death really impressed some people. The emperor wanted to promote this method and establish his prestige for the prince. He wanted his name to go down in history, so he secretly got someone to write a few poems to praise this matter. As the greatest contributor, Shao Qingyuan naturally could not avoid such publicity. Moreover, because of his identity, he attracted the resonance and admiration of many citizens. Look, an ordinary person like him had left his name in history because of this matter. The emperor had placed him in an important position, and even the prince was grateful to him. If they worked hard, they might have such achievements in the future, right? Then some scholars began to glorify him. Some tea houses wrote books about his deeds, and some wanted to write biographies about him for future generations to read. Yundong had sweat when she heard that. She suddenly thought of her publicity in the Xuanhe prefecture. It was really similar, but she really didn't expect Shao Qingyuan's reputation in the capital to be like this. Madame Gu smiled and said, You know now, right? If others know that the shop belongs to Shao Qingyuan who invented the cowpox vaccination method, who do you think will dare to come and find trouble with you? Although your husband doesn't have any power, he has a reputation. Whoever dares to find trouble with your shop will probably be scolded as ungrateful. There are so many aristocratic families and nobles in the capital. Most of them care about their reputation. Who would carry such a blame? At least, for the time being, no one would go and get into trouble. As for when Shao Qingyuan's deeds slowly faded in the future, would they still dare to? Madame Gu felt that with Shao Qingyuan and Yundong's abilities, they would have grown up. Anyone who came to find trouble with them would be asking for trouble. Yundong could not help but want to laugh. Should she be grateful to the emperor? If he hadn't worked so hard to promote and add fuel to the fire, it wouldn't have had such an effect. She thought for a moment and suddenly asked, Brother Shao will be recorded in history. What about me? I made the white sugar. It's very popular in the capital now. It's very rare. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1371. A village woman surnamed Gugu Yundong was a little excited at the thought of it. Being a historical celebrity was so exciting. However, Madame Gu laughed dryly and lowered her head slightly to take a sip of tea. After a while she said, "Perhaps there will be records." A Gu woman in a village in Fengkai County? Gu Yundong was speechless. Could a historian be a good person? Was a woman not worthy of having a name? Gu Yundong was not in a good mood. She took a big sip of tea in frustration. However, she also knew that the world was like this now. There might not even be the word Gu. Unless you were especially famous, even a noble daughter of the royal family and the empress of a country would only have a title and a surname, let alone a commoner like her. Forget it. Gu Yundong did not care much about leaving her name in history. She just wanted to live well now. Now that she knew about Shao Qingyuan, she had an idea. Nevertheless, "I still want to work with you." Madame Gu was a little surprised. "Why?" "Brother Shao's reputation will prevent us from trouble, but the milk tea shop is targeted at rich madams and young ladies. Someone has to take the lead. These people won't spend at my milk tea shop for Brother Shao, but with you around, as the assistant minister of the Ministry of Official Personnel Affairs and the wife of the emperor's favorite minister, you will definitely attract many customers." Madame Gu was enlightened. "You're asking me to help you promote it. Actually, this is also one reason. There's another reason. I've discussed it with Madame Dai and Ye Shuang. We'll definitely open shops in other prefectural cities in the future. However, our energy is limited after all. It's impossible for us to have connections in every prefectural city. Therefore, in the future, we'll find a suitable person to cooperate with when we open shops in any prefectural city." Gu Yundong suddenly had this idea after seeing Duanwan in Wanqing Prefecture. However, at that time, she only thought of working with Duanwan in Wanqing Prefecture, and did not think about the capital. It was Madame Dai who suggested it when she sent the letter back to them. Their shop was different from ordinary shops. New Tea Pavilion targeted women, rich women. However, such a client group needed someone to take the lead, especially someone with a certain status. Madame Dai and the others had such an effect in the Xuanhe Prefecture, but they could not do it elsewhere. It was impossible for them to find a capable shopkeeper like others who opened shops. Even if a shop opened by an unknown foreigner was novel and well advertised, these madams and young ladies might not buy it. On the other hand, some women in the market would come in to take a look out of curiosity, but this way, their target group would be wrong. New Tea Pavilion didn't need everyone in the prefectural city to know, but it needed everyone in a certain circle to know. The Xuanhe Prefecture had leaders like Madame Dai and Ye Shuang, which was why it was so popular. The Wanqing Prefecture had Duanwan. Although she was not the daughter of an official, she also interacted with the daughters of officials. The Duan family's reputation in the Wanqing Prefecture was enough. In the capital, Gu Yundong felt that the Gu family was very good. Gu Yundong did not need the Gu family to do anything. It was just a name. She would give the shop in the capital a monthly boost. It was mutually beneficial. Because of this, Madame Dave and Ye Shuang felt that they could compress their shares. After all, they were only providing money. They could not help with anything else. When Madame Gu heard her thoughts, she was a little tempted. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1372. You came at the right time as someone who had seen the Xuanhe Prefecture milk tea shop popular with her own eyes. Madame Gu knew that once the fire in the capital was lit, the effect would definitely be doubled. She had not been in the capital for long. Wenzheng had bought a few shops in the capital a long time ago, and her family did not lack money now. But who would complain about having too much money? She still had a daughter now. Looking at Anning, she did not know what kind of person she would marry in the future. As her mother, she naturally had to prepare more dowry for her. When the girl was married, she didn't need to panic when she had money. After hesitating for a moment, Madame Gu could not help but nod. Gu Yundong immediately signed a contract with her. Although they were on good terms, even brothers had to settle accounts clearly. With the contract, if Qin Wenzheng did not agree in the future, it would not be good to go back on his word, right? Gu Yundong happily put away the contract. Madame Gu also happily put the contract into a box and locked it. Then, the two of them began to discuss the opening of the shop. Before the shop opens, I'll send an invitation to the madams and young ladies in the capital to our residence as guests. We've been in the capital for so long, but we've never invited guests. When the time comes, take out some new things like milk tea, double-skinned milk, fried chicken, and pastries for everyone to try. These people will definitely like them. Gu Yundong thought so too. This was a rare opportunity for publicity. At the mention of the banquet, Gu Yundong narrowed her eyes slightly and said, "Then can you do me a favor and invite the Madam and Miss of Marquis Huayin's family?" Marquis Huayin's family? Madame Gu said. Who do you want to see in Marquis Huayin's family? Yes. Gu Yundong did not hide it. Brother Shao's background might be related to Marquis Huayin. Madame Gu was surprised. Of course, she knew that Shao Qingyuan's background was still a mystery. Previously, Qin Wenzheng had told her that they had suspected the Tao family. Later, they confirmed that the third young master of the Tao family was not Shao Qingyuan, and there were no more clues. Qin Wenzheng had also helped to keep an eye out, but they did not expect it to be related to Marquis Huayin in the capital. Yes, the surname of Marquis Huayin was Shao. Madame Gu hurriedly said. It's naturally not a problem for me to invite Marquis Huayin's family. However, if you want to know Shao Qingyuan's background, I'm afraid it won't work. You don't know, but Marquis Huayin's family has been keeping a low profile in recent years and doesn't like to stand out. In addition, Marquis Huayin is now mediocre. Although he has the title of Marquis, he has received an idle position and doesn't have any real power in his hands. His younger brother is the same. There are two smart people in the younger generation, but they're only elementary scholars now. Therefore, the old madam and the marquis' wife don't like to go out. However, the heir apparent's wife likes fun. If we invite them to a banquet, the people who go out will probably be from the heir apparent's generation. The younger generation was only a few years older than Gu Yundong. It was impossible for them to know about Shao Qingyuan's background 20 years ago. Even if they came, she would not be able to find out anything. Although the daughter-in-law of Marquis Huayin was eloquent, she had only married into the Marquis mansion for 6 to 7 years. Gu Yundong frowned slightly. It made sense. Although the Qin family was currently popular, the Qin family did not have an old madam. It was impossible for other families with higher seniority to come over. Seeing her conflicted expression, Madame Gu smiled and said, "But you came at the right time. Although we can't invite the old madam and the others of Marquis Huayin over, we can go to the Marquis mansion." Gu Yundong's eyes lit up and he hurriedly asked, "What do you mean?" If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1373. Person drenched in sweat. Madame Gu smiled and said, "Previously, I received an invitation from the Marquis mansion saying that the plum blossoms in the backyard of Marquis Huayin's family had bloomed and invited everyone to admire the flowers. Originally, I thought that I wasn't familiar with them and wanted to reject them. Now that you want to go to the Marquis mansion, this is an opportunity. Flowers could be admired anytime. They were just looking for an opportunity to hold a banquet." In the short time that Madame Gu had been in the capital, many ladies from aristocratic families had held banquets. She had received countless invitations, and Madame Gu had only gone twice. Marquis Huayin's family's heir's wife was relatively late. It was really because the old madam and the others didn't like this kind of liveliness, but they still had to socialize. Moreover, Marquis Huayin's family had been glorious in the early years, so their plum blossom forest was really big and beautiful. There were indeed many madams and young ladies who went for the beautiful scenery. Gu Yundong immediately smiled. What a coincidence. When is the date? 2 days later. 2 days later, Gu Yundong's eyes lit up. All right, I'll go. Then Madame Gu gave Gu Yundong some instructions and told her about the situation in Marquis Huayin's residence. She asked her to stay for a meal before sending her out. Gu Yundong only realized something after leaving the Qin residence and getting into the carriage. She had forgotten to ask the Gu family if they had a candidate for the female shopkeeper. However, after thinking about it, she decided to forget it. In any case, they would meet again in 2 days. When the time came, it would be the same if she asked. When she returned home, she saw Shao Qingyuan leaning against the recliner reading a book. When Shaowen was not around, Gu Yundong sent Tong Shuitao away. She walked over and laid on him. She hugged his waist and said, "I heard a lot about you when I went to the Qin family today." Shao Qingyuan quickly hugged her to prevent her from falling. When he heard this, he couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. "Me? What is it? So you're so famous in the capital. Your reputation seems to be very useful." Shao Qingyuan put down his book and propped himself up slightly. He carried her and sat on his lap. "It's all untrue. Outsiders say I have a kind face." Gu Yundong burst out laughing. She held his face and looked left and right. After a while she nodded. "You do look kind." Shao Qingyuan narrowed his eyes, pressed her head down and kissed her. This girl was very bad. She even dared to tease him. Gu Yundong was overjoyed. She leaned into his arms and talked. She told him about her cooperation with Madame Gu in the Qin residence, and also about going to Marquis Huayin's residence in 2 days. Speaking of Marquis Huayin's family, Shao Qingyuan was silent for a moment. He thought of Tang Qijing, whom he had met in the shop today. This person's mother seemed to be the cousin of Marquis Huayin? Tang Qijing. Hearing this name, Gu Yundong nodded, indicating that she would remember it. Shao Qingyuan looked at her and said, "I'll go with you in 2 days and wait for you outside the mansion." Unfortunately, only women were invited. Gu Yundong smiled and pinched his face. "Are you worried?" "Yeah." "All right, then wait for me outside." If there were any clues, she could tell him immediately. After all, it was about his background. She hoped that she would gain something from this trip to the Marquis mansion. Gu Yundong wanted Shao Qingyuan to reunite with his family as soon as possible. 2 days later, Gu Yundong and the others took a carriage to the Qin residence early in the morning. Then they met up with Madame Gu and headed to Marquis Huayin's residence. However, not long after they left, a carriage hurriedly entered Hutai Alley and stopped in front of the Shao family's house not long after. Then, the coachman turned around and helped the sweating person out of the carriage. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Ads by Pubrev Chapter 1374. Something urgent. After the people in the carriage got out, the coachman hurriedly went forward and knocked on the door. Instead, after knocking for a long time, there was no response. The coachman turned around and looked at the person behind him. Song Dejiang frowned when he heard someone open the door of the house next door. Mrs. Yu poked her head out. When she saw them, she hurriedly said, "Are you looking for the Shao family? They're not around." The couple went out in a carriage early in the morning. When Song Dejiang heard this, he quickly turned around and asked her, "Do you know where they went?" Mrs. Yu shook her head. "I'm not sure about that. Is there something urgent? Leave your name. When they come back, I'll help you tell them." "My surname is Song. They'll know once you tell them. I do have something urgent to attend to. If they come back, please help me pass on the message." Mrs. Yu waved her hand. "It's no trouble at all." Song Dejiang thanked her again before wiping his sweat and hurriedly getting into the carriage. He glanced at the Shao family's gate and said to the coachman, "Let's go to the shop on Jinlan Street to take a look." The coachman quickly changed direction and went straight to 68 Jinlan Street. Unfortunately, when Song Dejiang stood in the shop, he only saw the busy Carpenter Pang and the other two. Carpenter Pang said that Shao Qingyuan and his wife had not come today. Song Dejiang was a little frustrated. When the coachman saw this, he quickly helped him up. "Master, we don't have time to look for them. If we don't go back, we might." Song Dejiang exhaled, and something in his eyes slowly became firm. He gritted his teeth and lowered the curtain of the carriage. He instructed the coachman, "Let's go back to the residence. At most, I'll apologize to them when they come back." The coachman nodded and drove the carriage even faster. Soon, they returned to the Song family. At this moment, Shao Qingyuan and Gu Yundong had no idea that Song Dejiang was looking for them anxiously. They had already followed Madame Gu to the door of Marquis Huayin's family. Gu Yundong glanced at the door, turned around, and said to Shao Qingyuan, who was sitting in the carriage, "I'll go in first." "Okay, be careful. If you see anything wrong, come out." Gu Yundong laughed. "I'm just going to admire the flowers. Why do you make it seem like I'm going to the battlefield?" "Don't worry, I'll take good care of myself." Shao Qingyuan held her hand. "I'll wait for you outside." After Gu Yundong got off the carriage, Shao Qingyuan nodded at Madame Gu. "Sorry to trouble you." It was not until Madame Gu led Gu Yundong and Anning into the residence that Shao Qingyuan sat back in the carriage. This was the main gate of the Marquis mansion, so it was not appropriate for the carriage to stop here and wait. Shao Qingyuan looked around and realized that there were also some official residences near the Marquis mansion. There were no large tea houses or restaurants, but there was a tea shop at the entrance of an alley further away. Shao Qingyuan asked Shao when to pull the carriage away and sat down in the shop. Gu Yundong followed Madame Gu through the door and quietly looked up to assess the scenery in the Marquis mansion. As expected of the once prosperous Marquis Huayin's mansion, the mansion was even larger than the one the emperor had bestowed to Qin Wenzheng. Even though the current Marquis mansion was far inferior to the past, the scenery was still spectacular. The servant led them through the weeping flower door. Immediately, a person welcomed them with a smile. "Mrs. Qin, you're finally here. I was just saying that I should take a look at the door. Come, come, come. This way." As she spoke, she looked down at Qin Anning and said, "You must be Anning. You're so pretty and smart." Anning obediently paid her respects. Only then did Gu Yundong know that this was the wife of the heir of Marquis Huayin. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1375. Gu Yundong is inconspicuous. The heir's wife smiled and stood up. She looked at Gu Yundong with a puzzled expression. This is my niece. Her husband's surname is Shao. She heard that the plum blossoms in the Marquis mansion are a scene in our capital, and insisted on coming over to take a look. I brought her here to meet her. I hope you won't take offense." Although Madame Gu was only a few years older than Gu Yundong, Qin Anning addressed Gu Yundong as elder sister, and Gu Yunshu was Qin Wenzheng's disciple, so the seniority could only be calculated like this. "Of course I welcome you. I like people. My husband's surname is Shao. Who knows, we might have been a family 500 years ago." Gu Yundong pursed her lips and smiled meaningfully. Wasn't that so? She had come exactly because they might be a family. She followed suit and bowed. Then the heir's wife led them inside. Before they got close, Gu Yundong saw a rose-red scenery in the distance. It was really beautiful, like a paradise. It was indeed a scene in the capital. The plum blossom forest in the Marquis Huayin's mansion was indeed beautiful. Gu Yundong could not help but hold her breath. Even Madame Gu was a little surprised. Seeing them like this, the heiress couldn't help but purse her lips and smile. "Let's go. Standing far away now is the best. Being in the plum forest is another feeling." "That's right." The few of them continued walking. Soon they heard low voices and laughter. It seemed that there were already many madams and young ladies in the plum forest. When they saw Madame Gu coming over, a few people immediately stood up to welcome her. After all, he was a popular person in front of the emperor. Even though there were many aristocratic families with statuses higher than Qin Wenzheng, they still smiled at Madame Gu and did not dare to underestimate her. Gu Yundong held Qin Anning's hand and stood quietly at the side. She listened to Madame Gu introduce her, and then nodded slightly in greeting. However, there were too many people. Not long after, the smile on Gu Yundong's face could not hold on any longer. She was not the only one. Anning, who was beside her, could not help but shake Gu Yundong's hand a few times. After finally walking to the pavilion and sitting down, the heir's wife finally said, "Anning, do you want to go over there to play? The little girls are all over there. Do you want to join in the fun?" Actually, Qin Anning did not want to go. She felt that they were not on the same side. However, she was even more unwilling to stay here. Her mother and these madams and young ladies would definitely talk for a long time. She was too bored. In any case, it was fine as long as she left this place. She did not have to play with those people. Therefore, she nodded and looked at Madame Gu. Madame Gu glanced at Gu Yundong. She knew that she had a motive for entering the Marquis mansion. She could not sit here with her all the time. Hence, she said to Gu Yundong, "Yundong, help me keep an eye on her. She'll listen to you. Don't let her go wild." "All right." Gu Yundong nodded obediently and bade farewell to the other madams and ladies. She then held Qin Anning's hand and left. In the eyes of many madams, Gu Yundong was not eye-catching. This married woman was probably just using Qin Wenzheng to see the world. Without her around, these people felt more at ease. The maidservant quickly led Gu Yundong and Qin Anning to the other side of the forest. When they were almost there, Gu Yundong saw 7 or 8 young girls laughing and playing. They were probably all under the age of 10. Qin Anning was not willing to go over. She stood where she was and spoke to Gu Yundong. "If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc. please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Ads by Pubrev Chapter 1376. The apology isn't pure, however. The girls on the other side saw them. The people who were playing looked at each other. Not long after, 2 ladies of the same age as Anning ran over and stood in front of Qin Anning, inviting her. "Anning, are you coming with us to play?" Qin Anning did not. She did not like these people. They liked to compare at such a young age. It was either that their parents doted on them or that they had learned the zither, chess, calligraphy, and painting. They were praised and rewarded. They even asked her if she was very knowledgeable. After all, her father was a young genius and had caused a sensation back then. Later on, when they found out that Anning was not as good as them, they all looked at her in a strange way. It was as if she had embarrassed her father just because she was not a talented girl. Therefore, the last time they met, they parted on bad terms. Qin Anning did not expect them to come looking for her again. Frowning, she shook her head and said, "I'm not going. I want to accompany my sister Gu." The 2 girls looked up at Gu Yundong curiously. Then they turned around to look at the other little girls and quickly said, "Anning, come with us. It was our fault last time. When we went back, we were scolded by our parents. We know our mistake and won't do it again." Startled, Qin Anning's heart softened at the sight of how guilty they looked. The young lady was not a calculative person to begin with. Since they had already apologized, it would be rude of her to continue harping on it. She immediately pursed her lips and said softly, Then he'll forgive you." Then, she looked up at Gu Yundong. Gu Yundong laughed. "You can go if you want. I'll be here admiring the flowers myself. Just call me if you need anything." Gu Yundong and Qin Anning had different thoughts. She knew that these people would condescend to come over and invite Anning because of her father. They said that they had been scolded by their parents last time. She guessed that their parents had asked them to build a good relationship with the young lady of the Qin family. The apology was not pure, and they did not really realize that they were wrong. But what did it matter? Anning was young. Deep down, she longed to play with other children. If she was restrained, Anning would never know the true thoughts of these young ladies in the capital. As Qin Wenzheng's daughter, the people she would come into contact with in the future were these people. She could not avoid them. Gu Yundong just watched from the side. Qin Anning quickly followed the 2 young ladies to their small circle. Gu Yundong had sharp eyes and noticed that there seemed to be a young lady in the center of them, who looked even younger than Anning. Thinking about it, this young lady was also a person of noble status. When Gu Yundong saw that they were speaking quickly, she separated her attention and sized up the people around her. Most of the people in this area were the maidservants of those girls. They basically stood far away. Some were alone, and some were gathered together to talk. The rest were the old maids in the Marquis mansion. Gu Yundong's target was these people. She saw an old woman picking up the plum blossom branches that had been torn off the ground. She was probably afraid that the young masters here would accidentally step on them and fall. Gu Yundong narrowed her eyes and quietly reached into her sleeve. She took out the silver bracelet from her space and put it on her wrist. This silver bracelet was specially made after she heard the news from Liangzi in the Wanqing prefecture. If the Marquis Mansion was really Shao Qingyuan's house, then the elders of the Marquis Mansion should have seen this bracelet. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1377. Gu Yundong's little trick. Gu Yundong wore the bracelet and specially walked to the old woman's side. She bent down and picked up one of the broken branches. The hand with the silver bracelet stretched out in front of the old man. For you. The old woman was stunned. She followed the bracelet's hand and looked up. Then she was shocked and said in fear, I don't dare to trouble madam. I can do it. Gu Yundong stretched the bracelet in front of her again. I'm fine. It's just a matter of convenience. Madam, just enjoy the flowers and tea. There are snacks in the pavilion over there. If you need anything else, feel free to tell me. Gu Yundong nodded. All right, I understand. Thank you. After saying that, she turned around and wanted to leave, but the bracelet slid down her wrist and fell to the ground. Seeing this, the old woman hurriedly picked up the bracelet and handed it to Gu Yundong. Madam, this is your bracelet. Gu Yundong turned around. Why did it fall off again? The buttons don't seem to be reliable anymore. I have to get someone to repair it later. As she spoke, she reached out to take the silver bracelet. The old woman took a few more glances at the bracelet. Gu Yundong's eyes lit up and he asked, Have you seen this bracelet before? Huh. The old woman was stunned for a moment before shaking her head. I've never seen it before. I just think this bracelet is quite unique. Gu Yundong was speechless. The corners of her mouth twitched. It was indeed quite unique. Gu Yundong was a little disappointed that this old woman had never seen it before. The old woman left quickly. Gu Yundong put the silver bracelet back on her wrist. Unexpectedly, when she looked up, she saw a group of maidservants not far away pointing at her. Gu Yundong narrowed her eyes and looked at them coldly. Immediately, two maids did not dare to make a sound, but two of them looked at Gu Yundong provocatively. Gu Yundong frowned when she suddenly heard Qin Anning's angry voice. Sister Gu is not a servant of our family. Sister Gu is very capable. You're not allowed to speak ill of her. Gu Yundong looked over and saw that Qin Anning's face had indeed turned red. She pushed one of the young ladies unhappily. That little girl was the one who seemed to have a noble status. As expected, as soon as Anning pushed, one of the maids who had provoked Gu Yundong just now ran over quickly. Princess. She hugged the little girl and reached out to push Anning. Gu Yundong's pupils constricted. An adult's strength was different from a child's. Anning pushed the little girl and only made her retreat. This maidservant pushed Anning and was about to make her fall. Gu Yundong suddenly rushed forward and quickly supported Anning before she reached the end. She frowned at the maidservant. However, the maidservant looked at her young master tightly. Little princess, are you all right? Are you injured? After saying that, she looked up at Anning. What's wrong with you? If you want to talk, just talk. What right do you have to hit her? If our little princess is injured, can you bear the responsibility? Anning pursed her lips. After a moment of silence, she said, It's my fault for pushing her. I apologize, but it's also wrong for her to hurt someone with her words. She has to apologize too. The servant girl was so angry that she laughed. Our little princess. Before she could finish speaking, the little girl in her arms stopped her. The young princess pushed the servant girl away and raised her chin arrogantly. I didn't say anything wrong. Why should I apologize? If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1378. Gu Yundong is a country bumpkin. The young princess raised her head and looked at Gu Yundong again. Her eyes were filled with contempt. How powerful can a country woman like her be? She can't even compare to my maidservant. I don't know what Mrs. Qin is thinking. She actually brought such a bumpkin into the Marquis mansion. How embarrassing. You. Qin Anning stomped her feet in anger. She's not a bumpkin. How is she not a bumpkin? Another young lady chimed in. Didn't you say just now? Her family is in that village. You even said that she brought you to the mountains and fields to catch cicadas with you. You even ate cicadas. Just thinking about it makes me feel disgusted. You also said that her younger brother didn't have the money to go to school in the past. Later, he finally started to learn with your father. I didn't mean that. Qin Anning looked at Gu Yundong anxiously. Yes, she was the one who said those words. However, she just wanted to tell these people that Sister Gu treated her very well and played with her. There were many interesting things in the village. It was clearly these people who asked her about her previous life in Fengkai County. Why did they say that Sister Gu was a bumpkin? Also, she just wanted to tell them that Yunshu was very good at studying. He had only been in her father's school for a year, but he had already surpassed most of the students. He would be the top scholar in the future. These people deliberately misinterpreted her meaning. The young lady looked at Gu Yundong anxiously. She did not want her to misunderstand her. She did not want Sister Gu to hate her. Gu Yundong lowered her eyes and patted her head. She smiled and said, I know. Don't be anxious. Anning's personality was a little like Madame Guess. Madame Gu was not good at arguing with others. Actually, this also meant that the mother and daughter were protected too well by Qin Wenzheng. Seeing that Gu Yundong did not misunderstand, Anning heaved a sigh of relief. When she looked up again, she faced the girls with her head held high. When the young princess saw this, she was immediately indignant. Especially a country bumpkin like Gu Yundong. She did not even look at her when she ran over, as if she looked down on her. She was extremely displeased. Pointing at Gu Yundong, she said, Qin Anning even said that you're amazing. Do you know how to play the zither, chess, calligraphy, and painting? How many books have you read? Do you know how to write poems and settle accounts? Gu Yundong raised her eyebrows. They thought these were impressive. Gu Yundong smiled. For some reason, the young princess in front of her felt a little terrified when she saw her smile. She was about to continue pressing when she heard Gu Yundong's cold voice. You're asking me this? It means that you know everything, right? The young princess snorted. Of course. I've been studying since I was 3 years old. I know the zither, chess, calligraphy, and painting. I also know how to memorize poems and calculate accounts. I've also read a lot of books. She was 6 years old this year, and had studied for 3 years. She thought that her results were not bad. After all, even the headmaster praised her for being smart. Gu Yundong nodded slightly. You've read a lot of books? She seized this point and asked. If that's the case, do you know the most basic knowledge? Of course, of course. The young princess felt an inexplicable panic. However, she was a dignified princess. How could she be afraid of a bumpkin? Then let me ask you a few questions. Gu Yundong raised her eyebrows and smiled. Just ask. Would she be stumped by an uneducated bumpkin? What a joke. The other children also looked arrogant, but a few older girls frowned slightly. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1379. Gu Yundong's sharp questions. Gu Yundong thought that since they were so eager, she would not stand on ceremony. Okay, then let me ask you. Why do horses sleep standing up? Why is it usually sunny in the morning when there's dew? Why is it colder when snow melts than when it falls? Why can't the oil that's on fire be put out with water? The young princess widened her eyes. She did not know. But before she could answer, Gu Yundong's next questions followed. When you hit a snake, you hit its weak spot. Where does the weak spot refer to? What is the most precious thing in the bird's nest? What's the use of a cat's whisker? What kind of plants bloom first and then grow leaves? As soon as Gu Yundong finished speaking, there was silence. Everyone looked at her blankly. These questions were different from what they had imagined. None of them knew. The young princess was so anxious that she started to sweat. Her teacher had never taught her before, and there was no such thing in the books. How could she answer? She could only turn her head quietly and look at the maid behind her. The maidservant naturally did not know, but she did not want to show her ignorance in front of the young princess, so she immediately targeted Gu Yundong. The maidservant sneered and said, You're quite nimble with your questions. Who can't ask these questions? But do you know the answers? You probably don't know and are specially using them to scare people, right? The other maidservants immediately echoed, That's right, that's right. Do you know the answers? Why should you ask someone else for an answers you don't even know? The older ones also nodded. You must have asked randomly. No, she did not. Qingyuan immediately defended Gu Yundong and retorted, My sister Gu definitely knows. She's very powerful. When the young princess heard the support of the people around her, her guilty conscience immediately disappeared. She also looked at Gu Yundong. Tell me the answers if you have the ability. Okay. Gu Yundong raised her eyebrows and smiled. Firstly, a horse has a big body and doesn't have sharp teeth or claws. If it lies down to sleep, once a ferocious beast attacks, it will be too late to defend or escape. Therefore, a horse has developed the habit of sleeping standing up to protect itself. Second, on a clear and cloudless night, the heat on the ground will dissipate quickly. The temperature in the field will decrease rapidly, and the ability to contain water vapor in the air will weaken. This way, the water vapor will condense on the grass, leaves, or rocks. Therefore, it's usually sunny in the morning when there's dew. 3. When the snow stops and the sky clears, there will be no clouds in the sky to block sunlight. The snow will begin to melt under the sunlight and absorb heat, so it will be colder when the snow melts. Fourth, oil is lighter than water. When it burns, if you pour water into it, the water will immediately sink to the bottom of the oil. The oil will float up and flow out of the pot. Of course, the fire will burn brighter and brighter. It's best to immediately cover the pot to extinguish the oil pot fire. After Gu Yundong finished speaking, she looked at the girls in front of her who were blinking in shock. She suddenly felt that she was bullying them. She spoke faster. The 7 inches of a snake is the heart. The most precious bird's nest is the blood swallow. A cat's whisker is used to detect the width of the road. Plants like winter plums, white jasper, and elm plums bloom first before growing leaves. Buying the shell and returning the pearl is a metaphor for people who only pay attention to the appearance of things and not their substance. She said the last sentence very meaningfully. As expected, the 2 older girls instantly understood what she meant and felt a little ashamed. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1380. Not the Lady Gu Yundong looked at the other young ladies, but she was so shocked by their sparkling eyes that she took a step back. What are you doing? You really know everything, the young princess said in disbelief. None of her teachers had ever told her that. Was this woman really a bumpkin? Standing at the side, Qingyuan puffed out her chest and said proudly, I told you long ago that my sister Gu is extremely capable, but you didn't believe me. Otherwise, if you have any questions, just ask my sister Gu and she'll be able to answer them. Gu Yundong was speechless. No, I am not. You were bragging too much. Seeing that the young princess had opened her mouth and was about to ask questions, Gu Yundong hurriedly wanted to stop her. Unexpectedly, a low laugh suddenly came from behind. Gu Yundong was stunned. She turned around and saw a few people suddenly walk out of the plum forest. The woman standing at the front looked to be in her 40s. She was slightly fat, but she looked kind. Behind her were 2 maidservants. Just as Gu Yundong was wondering who this person was, she heard the young ladies beside her say respectfully, Marquis Madam. Marquis Madam? Gu Yundong was stunned. Was this Marquis Huayan's wife? She stopped breathing and could not help but size her up. But then, she frowned slightly. Back then, Liangzi had said that the couple carrying Shao Qingyuan were a beautiful couple who were tall. The marquise in front of her was a little plump, and not very tall. However, one could still vaguely see her youthful beauty from her face. Was she the same person from back then? The lady was also sizing up Gu Yundong. She had actually come over earlier, and was attracted by the young prince's voice. This flower appreciation banquet was organized by the heir's wife, and the guests were all from the younger generation, and it was fine if she did not attend. However, as the wife of the head of the family, she should greet everyone when they arrived. However, she did not expect to hear the children arguing the moment she returned. The cause was the young woman in front of her. The lady wanted to go out, but she stopped when she heard this person's voice. Then, she heard the series of questions and answers. To be honest, it was really unexpected. The Marquise thought that she had read a lot of books, but she could only answer a few of these questions. It was a very strange feeling. So this was how the knowledge that was closely related to them came about. The Marquise became interested in Gu Yundong. No wonder Madame Gu brought her here. It seems that Madame Shao is also a well-read person. The Marquise was the first to speak. Gu Yundong smiled. I just read some miscellaneous books. As she spoke, she raised her hand and brushed her hair, revealing the silver bracelet on her wrist. The silver bracelet was really eye-catching. As expected, the Marquis's gaze was fixed on it for 2 seconds. Gu Yundong observed her expression. Unfortunately, there was no fluctuation in her emotions. She could not help but feel a little disappointed. If Shao Qingyuan's background was really related to Marquis Huayin, then the people most likely to be his parents were the Marquis' wife or second madam. The Marquise in front of him did not react to the silver bracelet at all. She did not look like Shao Qingyuan at all. It was very likely that it was not her. Then, what about the second madam? But just in case, Gu Yundong wanted to confirm it again. She took out a handkerchief from her sleeve and gently wiped the dirt off her fingers. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1381. Pleasing, the handkerchief slid open, revealing the word Shao. However, the Marquise still did not have any reaction. She only said, Mrs. Shao, you might have been here for a long time. Why don't you go in and have a cup of tea and snacks? Then she said to the other children, what about you? Do you want to rest for a while before playing? Everyone looked at the young princess. The young princess nodded, and then looked at Gu Yundong. Seeing that Gu Yundong was holding Qin Anning's hand, she frowned and ran to her right. She also grabbed her hand that was holding onto the handkerchief. Gu Yundong. What are you doing? What happened? The little princess blushed slightly. She did not look at Gu Yundong and deliberately said with a straight face, let's go. Gu Yundong looked as if she had been struck by lightning. No, young princess, you were still calling me a bumpkin just now. Don't you feel uncomfortable holding my hand? The young prefect was not upset, but Qin Anning was. She wanted her not to hold her hand. This was her sister Gu. However, looking at the Marquise in front of her, she did not say anything. She only secretly glared at the young princess. On the other hand, the Marquise covered her mouth and laughed softly. Others might not know, but she knew very well. The young princess was the daughter of the royal prince, Zhiyan. Zhiyan was an arrogant person, and her daughter was very doted on. In any case, with him as her father, no one could bully her. Therefore, the young prince's personality was a little free to do whatever she wanted. When she could not stand Gu Yundong, she would scold her. Now that she realized that Gu Yundong had something that she liked, she could not help but get closer to him. Others did not know if this personality was good or bad. The Marquise sighed as she walked into the hall. When she turned around, she found that the children had all followed her in. Gu Yundong, who was surrounded in the middle, actually felt like the king of children. The Marquise wanted to laugh for a moment. Come sit. The Marquise got someone to serve tea and snacks for the children. She then asked Gu Yundong, what kind of books does Mrs. Shao usually read? Did this lady have to ask this? If she said that she only read storybooks, would she lead the children beside her astray? Hence, she took a sip of water and coughed lightly. I read everything. Astronomy and geography, medical books on medicinal herbs, farms, forests, countryside, historical biographies. I read whatever I'm interested in. As she spoke, she felt a little guilty. She lowered her head and continued to drink her tea. The Marquise was surprised. You really know a lot. When the other children heard this, they also tilted their heads and looked at her. So she knew so much because she had read so many books. However, they usually read poetry collections, scriptures, and memorize thousands of words. Thinking about it this way, their horizon seemed a little narrow. Gu Yundong saw that they were deep in thought, and felt even more guilty. She quickly changed the topic, raised her head, and said, by the way, it's rare to see Madam today. Yundong boldly asks for a gift from Madam. The Marquise was stunned. Not only her, but the others present were also stunned. The servant girl beside the young princess secretly rolled her eyes. The country bumpkin was indeed unruly. It was her first time meeting the Marquise, and the Marquise had only chatted with her for a while out of respect for her. But she was actually taking advantage of her? Just wait. Just because the Marquise was easy to talk to didn't mean she didn't have a temper. As expected, the smile on the Marquis's face faded a little, but she still asked kindly, "What gift?" If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1382. She's so busy. Yundong took out a piece of paper from his space. She handed the paper to the Marquise, who was stunned. She took it and looked at it. The drawing on the paper was very vivid, and there were some words on it. It looked a little strange. This is a flyer. It was the flyer for Xuanhe Prefecture's new tea pavilion. She had left a few behind when she was drawing them previously. She didn't have time to draw them in the capital, so she took one out and used it first. Fortunately, she tore off the piece with the address and date on it. I'm working with Auntie Qin to open a milk tea shop in the capital to entertain nobles like the Marquise. The food and water in the shop are relatively new. I dare say that there's nothing similar in the capital. If the Marquise is free, why don't you go and take a look? It'll be very interesting. The Marquise looked surprised and lowered her head to look at the leaflet in her hand. Pearl milk tea, double skim milk, croissants, fries. What are these? Yundong smiled mysteriously. It's delicious. Madam will know when she comes. The Marquise smiled. You're still keeping it a secret. That's right. The shop hasn't opened yet. When the renovation is done, Madam should come over to take a look, and you'll know what these are. When the time comes, bring old Madam, second Madam, and the heiress to experience it together. On the first day, there will be a half-price discount. The Marquise was a little curious about something she had never heard or seen before, especially since the flyer seemed to be very tempting. She did not go out often, but it was fine for her to go occasionally. Moreover, this was a collaboration between Yundong and Mrs. Qin. Even if it was for the sake of the Gu family, it was fine to make a trip. However, it's fine with old Madam. She doesn't like to move now and doesn't like to join in the fun. His second aunt can go and take a look. I'll call her later. All right, then I'll send a post to Madam. Madam, you can't refuse. Of course not. Yundong was slightly satisfied. Although she had not seen second Madam today, she would find an opportunity. Seeing that they were almost done talking, the young princess quickly said, I'll go too. You can also give me an invitation. Yundong lowered her head and thought for a moment. She naturally felt that she could not let go of the opportunity in front of him. All right, but you need an elder to take care of you. No problem. I'll still ask my cousin to bring me. Today, the young princess came to the Marquis mansion because her cousin had brought her over. After Yundong finished speaking, she saw that the Marquise looked a little tired. She quickly got up and bade farewell, taking the children with her. When she went out, she realized that Madame Gu was looking for her outside. Yundong hurriedly led Qin Anning over. Unexpectedly, after taking a few steps, she realized that the young princess had also followed her. Yundong was speechless. She stopped in her tracks and looked at the little girl strangely. Only then did the little princess react. She blushed and snorted. I just want to remind you not to forget to send it to me when the time comes. After a pause, she continued. I will also invite you. Tell me the address and I will treat you on my birthday. There's no need, right? A trace of fear flashed across Yundong's face. She did not want to go to the Marquis mansion. That kind of place was restricted. She had to smile and bow when she saw someone. It was easy for something to happen, okay? Besides, she was actually very, very busy, really busy. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1383. What a coincidence. Seeing that she did not speak for a long time, the little princess became anxious. Why aren't you saying anything? Don't you want to come? Gu Yundong had a headache and could only say, Princess, you heard it just now. I'm opening a shop. Then I'm very, very busy. I might not have time. How busy can a shop be? Can't you just keep the door open? Gu Yundong was speechless. She wanted to cry. The corners of her mouth twitched and she said, Of course it's not that simple. Look, when I open a shop, I first have to renovate the shop and recruit workers. When the workers are found, I have to teach them how to work and entertain customers. Later, I have to get ready for the opening event, prepare ingredients, and attract customers. Sometimes, I have to deal with others who come to find trouble with me. Things are piling up. I'm really too busy. The little princess' eyes widened as she listened. So it's so complicated. You're amazing. You actually know everything. The young lady behind her also nodded in agreement. They had no choice. At first, they thought that opening a shop was very simple. After all, their shops were all managed by the shopkeepers. The little princess was a little disappointed, but seeing that Gu Yundong was so tired, it seemed a little unreasonable to send an invitation to her. She could only nod reluctantly. All right, then I want to invite you, but remember to invite me. All right. Gu Yundong nodded and agreed without hesitation. Only then did the little princess smile. However, the maid standing behind her rolled her eyes and lowered her eyes without saying anything. Gu Yundong stood up and brought Qin Anning to meet up with the Gu family. She followed Madame Gu to greet the other madams and young ladies. After staying in the Marquis mansion for a while, she stood up and left. After leaving the Marquis mansion, Madame Gu carried Ning into the carriage and asked, How is it? Gu Yundong sighed and shook his head. The Marquise didn't seem to have any reaction when she saw the bracelet or the handkerchief. Madame Gu frowned. Could we have gone in the wrong direction? I've never heard of anyone losing a child in the Marquis mansion. I don't know either. It's just that this is the only clue at the moment. We can only look for it in the Marquis mansion first. If it's not relevant, we can look in other directions, Gu Yundong said. Let's try second Madame another day. Madame Gu patted her hand. There's no hurry. We've waited for so many years. Now that we have a clue, we'll find it eventually. Okay. Gu Yundong nodded. Send Anning back first. I think she's a little sleepy. I'll wait for Brother Shao. All right, then I'll take my leave first. If there's anything, you can come to my residence to look for me. There's no need for any invitations. I'll tell the door guard. Okay. Madame Gu asked the maidservant to help her into the carriage. Gu Yundong and Tong Shuitao watched their carriage get further and further away until it disappeared around the corner. Then she turned around. She did not know when Shao Qingyuan had appeared behind her, but what surprised Gu Yundong was that he was holding 2 boxes. Gu Yundong looked at the 2 boxes in confusion. This is. During the time you were in the Marquis mansion, I got 2 herbs. They were written in the medical book that Song Dejiang gave me. Gu Yundong's eyes widened. I've only been in the residence for a short while, and you've already gotten 2 precious herbs? Those were the herbs recorded in Song Dejiang's medical books. Shao Qingyuan handed the box to Shao Wen, who was leading the carriage over. He smiled and said, It was just a coincidence. Wasn't that too much of a coincidence? If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc. Please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1384. Bad feeling. Gu Yundong remembered that in the medical book Song Dejiang had given her, there were about 50 kinds of precious herbs. In less than 2 years, Shao Qingyuan had already found more than 30 types. Gu Yundong felt that he might have a buff that attracted medicinal herbs. Otherwise, how could it be so easy for him to find a medicinal herb that others might not be able to find even after working hard for their entire lives? Perhaps he was born to walk the path of a medicinal herb merchant. Gu Yundong could not help but sigh. Shao Qingyuan helped her into the carriage. The carriage drove all the way to Hutai Alley. Gu Yundong took the opportunity to tell him everything that had happened in the Marquis mansion. When Shao Qingyuan heard this, he was silent for a moment. He grabbed her hand and said, It's fine. There's no hurry. It's only the first day. Yeah. As they spoke, the carriage entered the alley and stopped in front of the Shao family's house. Unexpectedly, just as the carriage stopped and before she could get out, the door of the house next door opened, and Mrs. Yu ran over. Is Sister Yundong back? Yes, sister-in-law. What's the matter? Gu Yundong lifted the curtain and alighted from the carriage. Mrs. Yu had already run up to them and said in a hurry, "Io, where did you go? Why are you only back now? Let me tell you, when you left this morning, someone rushed over to look for you and said that he had something to tell you. There's no one here. I heard that they even went to your shop to look for you." Gu Yundong and Shao Qingyuan were stunned at the same time. They looked at each other and asked, "Sister-in-law Yu, did you ask who was looking for us?" "I asked. He said his surname is Song. You two know each other." "Song? Song de Jiang? You should know each other, right? He's a little old and so tall. He came in a carriage. He looked so anxious as if someone was going to die," Mrs. Yu said. "He asked me to wait for you to come back and tell you that it's an urgent matter." A bad feeling flashed across Shao Qingyuan's heart. "Let's go to the Song residence." Gu Yundong quickly turned to Mrs. Yu and said, "We understand. We'll go over and take a look now." "Thank you." With that, she got into the carriage with Shao Qingyuan. Shao Wen, who was about to open the door and remove the threshold, locked it again and sat in the shaft with Tong Shuitao. Mrs. Yu waved her hand and watched their carriage leave the alley. Gu Yundong did not know what had happened to Song Dejiang, or why he was in such a hurry. Her intuition told her that it might have something to do with Muzi. The carriage quickly stopped at the entrance of the Song residence. Gu Yundong and Shao Qingyuan alighted from the carriage, and the concierge recognized Shao Qingyuan. He quickly went up to them. "Young Master Shao, you're here?" "Yes, why is Imperial Physician Song looking for us?" The gatekeeper's eyes avoided them. He sighed and said, "You'll know when you come in." Then he hurriedly led the way. Gu Yundong had not been to the Song residence before today. She had her own matters to attend to. It was her first time here today, but she did not have any curiosity for admiration. The two of them walked all the way to the central room before the same urgent footsteps came from inside. Then Gu Yundong saw Song Dejiang, whose clothes were disheveled, whose hair was tangled, and whose head was covered in sweat. Song Dejiang was slightly stunned when he saw them. His fingers that were hanging by his side trembled slightly. Gu Yundong took a few steps forward. "Imperial Physician Song, what's wrong?" However, Song Dejiang was too ashamed to see their expressions. He raised his hand and wiped his face ruthlessly. "If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 1385. I used by Muzi then. Gu Yundong and Shao Qingyuan saw the blood on his face. Yu Song Dejiang choked. "Yundong, I've let you down." "What happened?" Song Dejiang raised his head. His eyes were bloodshot, and it was difficult for him to speak. After a long while he said with difficulty, "Muzi is gone." Gu Yundong felt her head explode. He was stunned for a moment, and could not help but take a step back. However, Shao Qingyuan suddenly stepped forward and grabbed Song Dejiang's clothes. "What do you mean? What do you mean by Muzi is gone?" Cough cough. Song Dejiang coughed uncomfortably. The servant beside him hurriedly came up to grab Shao Qingyuan's hand. "Young Master Shao, calm down and listen to old master first." Shao Qingyuan pushed the servant away and stared at Song Dejiang sharply. "Tell me." Even though Song Dejiang was feeling a little uncomfortable, he still said, "My martial nephew's old illness had relapsed, and he needed Muzi to save his life. I have no choice. I only had one stock with me, so I gave it to him to use first. I originally went to look for you to get your approval. Ahem, but you weren't around. My martial nephew couldn't wait any longer, so I could only." Song Dejiang also felt very guilty. Other people's things were equally important to them. He had used them without permission, but he had no choice. He could not watch his martial nephew die just like that. He had no choice. Song Dejiang closed his eyes. "I know that I didn't do this right. I've let you down. If you want to beat or scold me, it's up to you. I'll accept it." Shao Qingyuan suddenly clenched his fists and raised them high in the next moment. The servant beside him hurriedly rushed forward to stop him. "Young Master Shao, don't be rash. Master is old. If you punch him, he will lose his life. Get lost. The servant did not dare to let go. Not only was young Master Shao strong, but he was also a martial artist. He turned his head and happened to see Gu Yundong. He hurriedly shouted, young Master Shao, look at your wife. At the mention of Gu Yundong, Shao Qingyuan finally calmed down. He let go of Song Dejiang and turned to see Gu Yundong lowering his head in a daze. Shao Qingyuan quickly hugged her. Yundong, it's fine. If it's gone, well, look for it. We'll find it eventually. Gu Yundong's mind was in a mess. She had listened to Song Dejiang's words. However, she did not know what to do. It was not easy for her to obtain by Muzi. It had only been a few days, and he was gone just like that? Should he give Song Dejiang a beating? So what if he did? Bai Muzi would not be able to return. Gu Yundong had a headache. He frowned in pain and his face turned pale. Shao Qingyuan quickly picked her up and rushed to the guest room. Song Dejiang was still standing at the same spot. As he watched the two of them walk away, his legs seemed to be filled with lead and he could not move. His body was still in a mess and he looked very disheveled. Previously, when he was treating his martial nephew, he was also fully focused and did not dare to slack off at all, afraid that his martial nephew's life would be lost in his hands. Now she actually felt her legs go weak and she slid to the ground. The servant at the side quickly supported him and sat him on a chair at the side. Master. Song Dejiang waved his hand. I'm fine. He pointed in the direction where Shao Qingyuan had left. Follow them and see if they need anything. Yes. After the servant left, Song Dejiang wiped his face again. The blood on his hand had already dried up, and his nose was filled with the smell of blood. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1386. Her mother has been waiting for a long time. Shao Qingyuan carried Gu Yundong and kicked open the door. After placing her on the bed, he frowned and looked at her worriedly. What's wrong? Are you feeling unwell? I'm fine. I just feel a little uncomfortable. Gu Yundong buried her head in his arms and said in a muffled voice, why is it gone? It wasn't easy for us to get by Muzi, but it's gone just like that. It's okay. Well, look again. Gu Yundong hugged him tightly. We've been searching for nearly 2 years. It wasn't easy to find such a stock. I don't know how many more years it will take to find it. Her mother had been waiting for a long time. Gu Yundong hugged Shao Qingyuan even tighter. I really want to beat Song Dejiang up. I'll beat him. After Shao Qingyuan finished speaking, he realized that Gu Yundong's grip on his waist had tightened. He sighed slightly and hugged her on his lap. If it's really uncomfortable, cry. I'll be here. I'll watch over you. I am. Gu Yundong had always been strong and rarely cried. However, at this moment, she felt her eyes sting. It was very difficult to find that by Muzi. Shao Qingyuan almost gave up his life for this medicine. He almost became someone's slave. He ran away for a clue. He had put in a lot of effort. It was not easy for him to find by Muzi. In the future, he would not secretly take risks without telling her. But now they were back to square one. Her mother still had to wait. She had just had some hope, but it was gone. I'll write a letter later and ask my parents not to come. Her negative emotions reached their peak in an instant. Father and mother would be so disappointed. Shao Qingyuan took a deep breath and lowered his head to kiss her face. I'll write it. They won't blame you. Yes, Gu Yundong replied softly. Then, she closed her eyes and leaned into his arms without making another sound. Shao Qingyuan gently stroked her back until he felt her breathing gradually calm down. Then he hugged her and lay down. Seeing this, the servant at the door quietly closed the door. He exhaled and left quietly. When he returned to the main courtyard, Song Dejiang had already stood up. In the end, he went to wash his face, but his body was still messy. The servant reported, young Master Shao and Madam are resting in the guest room. Song Dejiang paused and nodded. Get Shao Wen and the rest to come in too. Arrange for them in the room next door. Then he went in to see his martial nephew. The guy was still unconscious, but his expression was slightly better. Song Dejiang sighed. and asked the medicine boy to continue guarding the room while he returned to his room to rest. He had been tense since early in the morning. He was old, and after such a rescue, he felt like the world was spinning when he came back to his senses. However, he really could not fall asleep on the bed. It was not until the sky was about to darken that he slowly fell asleep. The next day, Song Zhiyan woke up early. He went to see his martial nephew first, who was still unconscious. However, he took her pulse. Her pulse had stabilized and she was fine. Even his old illness had been treated, so it would not relapse. Song Zhiyan heaved a sigh of relief. After seeing them, he went to the courtyard and asked the servants, "Where are Shao, Qingyuan and the rest?" "They're not up yet." After hearing this, Song Zhiyan was silent for a while. "I'm going to check on them," he said and strode off toward the guest room. "If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 1387. Martial Nephew by Zhiyan. Unexpectedly, after taking a few steps, Shao Qingyuan and Gu Yundong arrived together. Song Zhiyan paused for a moment before stepping forward with a serious expression. "I'm very sorry about Bai Muzi." Gu Yundong waved her hand. "That's it. You've already used it. No matter what you say, it won't be able to come back. Moreover, he's your martial nephew. Coincidentally, his life was in your hands. Such a choice is inevitable." "Gu girl." Gu Yundong was a little tired. She took a deep breath. "Anyway, you owe me one." "I know. But I also owed you in the past," Gu Yundong said immediately. Song Zhiyan was stunned. Gu Yundong smiled bitterly. "We can't settle this score. Anyway, I'll continue to look for Bai Muzi. The next time I find it, I want hand it over to you first. Also, you have to save my mother." "All right." Song Zhiyan did not know what to say. After a long time, he said one word. "I'm hungry. Let's eat first." Song Zhiyan hurriedly got someone to serve the food. The three people eating in the reception pavilion were very quiet. No one spoke again. This kind of thing seemed to be unnecessary. Until a servant came to report, "Old master, young master Bai is awake." Song Zhiyan was stunned. He threw down his chopsticks and hurriedly ran away. Gu Yundong pinched herself gently. "Young master Bai? What's wrong?" Shao Qingyuan wiped her hands. When Song Zhiyan threw down his chopsticks just now, the porridge had splashed on the back of Yundong's hand. Gu Yundong suddenly said, "Bai? Could young master Bai be Bai Yang?" "Yes, Bai Yang's grandfather is Song Zhiyan's master." "It can't be." Gu Yundong could not be bothered to eat and hurried over to take a look. If it was really that little guy. However, when she saw the person lying on the bed, Gu Yundong finally came to her senses. It was not Bai Yang. Yes, Song Zhiyan knew that she knew Bai Yang. If it was him, Song Zhiyan would have told her. But this person looked familiar to Gu Yundong. Bai Zhiyan also saw them. His pale lips twitched as he said, "Martial uncle has already told me. I'm sorry, I used your Bai Muzi and couldn't tell you in advance." Gu Yundong did not know what to say. Song Zhiyan introduced, "This is Shao Qingyuan, this is Gu Yundong, the sister Gu that Bai Yang had seen before. Back in Qingyuan prefecture, she was the one who saved Bai Yang from the human traffickers." When Bai Zhiyan heard this, he immediately wanted to get up. Song Zhiyan hurriedly held him down. "It's not appropriate for you to move too much now." Bai Zhiyan could only give up and lie back down. However, he still said gratefully to Gu Yundong, "Mrs. Shao is the Bai family's great benefactor. You saved Bai Yang, and the medicine I used to treat his illness is yours. I really can't thank you enough." Gu Yundong remembered. Wasn't this the brother Bai that Bai Yang was talking about? Gu Yundong felt that every time she met him, he seemed to be terminally ill. Was he that miserable? For some reason, she actually felt some sympathy for him. However, Gu Yundong still said, "Since you're a member of the Bai family, I heard from Bai Yang that the Bai family has 2 Bai Muzis, right? If you're grateful, give me one later." "Of course. As long as we find the key to the jade door and open it, Bai Muzi will not be the only thing. There will also be a huge reward," Bai Zhiyan said solemnly. He could still make the decision to return Bai Muzi to Gu Yundong. "If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc. Please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1388. Who is Gao Feng looking for? Yundong was slightly satisfied. Seeing how tired he looked, she did not want to disturb his rest. Alright then, we'll leave first. Have a good rest. When I recover, I'll definitely visit again to thank you. Yundong nodded. He was really polite. She and Qingyuan walked out. Seeing that Song Dejiang had followed them out, she simply asked him for a messenger pigeon. Then, she borrowed a brush and paper to write to Dajiang and tell him about Muzi. Yundong held the brush for a long time, but did not know how to write. In the end, Qingyuan took it. Didn't I say that I would write it? Qingyuan was much faster at writing. He had always been good at keeping things short, so he finished it in no time. Then he stuffed it into the small bamboo tube on the messenger pigeon's leg and let it out. Song Dejiang's messenger pigeon was used to exchange medical books with him. It was just useful. Yundong heaved a sigh of relief after the letter was sent out. Her parents should not have set off yet. It was not too late to tell them. Song Dejiang saw that Yundong was still listless. He thought about it, and went into the house to take out 2 herbs. This is to compensate you. Yundong did not know him, but Qingyuan narrowed his eyes slightly. These herbs were the herbs in Song Dejiang's medical books. They were very precious. You're really giving them to us? Song Dejiang nodded. Although he was a little reluctant, he had done something wrong in the first place. It would not make sense if he did not compensate him. Seeing this, Yundong understood something. She paused and returned one of the medicinal herbs. 1 stalk for 1 stalk. There's no need to give more. I'll take this. Song Dejiang looked down and sighed inwardly. Although he was exchanging 1 stalk for another, the one he used was extremely precious to Yundong. It was exceptionally different. But when she said that, Song Dejiang still took it back. Qingyuan put away the remaining one, and the 2 of them were about to leave. At this moment, the medicine boy rushed over and said that Zhiyan's body temperature had risen again, and he asked Song Dejiang to hurry over and take a look. Song Dejiang hurried inside. Yundong and Qingyuan were about to leave, but they stopped when they heard this. After all, the man had used Muzi, so they had to show some concern. Therefore, the 2 of them returned to their rooms. Song Dejiang felt Zhiyan's pulse again, and heaved a sigh of relief. Fortunately, this was a normal phenomenon. He turned around and saw Qingyuan enter. He paused and looked at him, then at Zhiyan. Suddenly he said, "Come and take his pulse." Qingyuan frowned slightly, but Zhiyan understood. He immediately smiled and said, "This is a rare opportunity to learn. It's not easy to encounter my illness. Let's give it a try." Yundong pushed him. Only then did Qingyuan step forward and place his hand on his wrist. Zhiyan looked at him for a moment and said, "I heard from Uncle Master that you're very talented in medicine. Cough cough. If Gao Feng finds the key in the future and opens the jade door, there will be many lost books inside. You can take a look." Qingyuan nodded and continued to take the pulse. Yundong found it strange. Isn't Gao Feng looking for someone? He's looking for someone and the key? The key is with that person. As long as we find the person, we will naturally find the key. Yundong's eyes lit up. Last time Brother Shao met Gao Feng, I think he went to the Xuanhe prefecture. Who is he looking for? We live in the Xuanhe prefecture. We might be able to help. Yes, there was strength in numbers. If they help find the person, they would have the key. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc. Please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1389. Gao Feng is looking for me. Zhiyan thought for a moment. It wasn't that he couldn't say it. Moreover, Yundong was right. She was familiar with the Xuanhe prefecture. It might be helpful. Therefore, Zhiyan sighed and said, "Gao Feng is looking for a woman. Unfortunately, we don't know her name, age, or address. We only know that 2 years ago, she was about this tall." When he saw Qingyuan retract his hand that was taking his pulse, he raised his hand to indicate the height. Yundong frowned. He did not know her name. With her height from 2 years ago, it was really difficult to find her like this. Then where did he meet that woman? What did they say? What did they do? Yundong asked again. Bai Zhiyan said. Although that woman was young, her skills were very good. The biggest clue is that she had a crossbow on her. It's a very exquisite crossbow. Yundong was stunned. A strange look flashed across her face. Shao Qingyuan also looked up at her. The two of them looked at each other and fell silent. Bai Zhiyan continued. At that time, we saw it on the way to escape from the wilderness. It was on the road between Yongning Prefecture and Qingyuan Prefecture. At that time, we encountered 2 bastards who wanted to take advantage of the night to harm Bai Yang and Bai Yu. That girl suddenly appeared and helped to deal with one of them with a crossbow. The other was dealt with by Gao Feng. That girl said that she realized that those 2 people had ill intentions, so she attacked. Yundong widened her eyes in disbelief and looked at Bai Zhiyan in shock. She suspected that she had heard wrongly. On the other hand, Song Dejiang, who was at the side, asked in surprise. The girl Gao Feng is looking for met him on the way to escape? I remember that the Gu girl also escaped from the Yongning Prefecture. Bai Zhiyan was stunned and suddenly looked at Yundong. The latter gulped. After a while, she asked uncertainly. After that, Gao Feng even gave that girl a bag of steamed buns and pancakes? Not long after the girl left, a carriage came into the village. You guys left in the middle of the night? Bai Zhiyan's breathing suddenly stopped, and he suddenly wanted to sit up. However, he got up too quickly and felt dizzy. He fell back hard. Fortunately, Shao Qingyuan was sitting on the edge of the bed. He quickly reached out to support her. Song Dejiang said anxiously. Don't be agitated. Hurry up and lie down. Let's talk slowly. Bai Zhiyan took a while to calm down and suppress the pain. He closed his eyes and turned his head slightly. He looked straight at Yundong. You. If I'm right, then this person is me. Yundong took a deep breath. She also felt that it was a little magical. She had always known that Gao Feng was looking for someone. The last time she met Bai Yang in Qingyuan Prefecture, she had almost met Gao Feng. In the end, due to a freak combination of factors, Gao Feng left Qingyuan Prefecture early. Later on the way to find his uncle, Shao Qingyuan also met Gao Feng. At that time, they had just come out of the Xuanhe Prefecture, and Gao Feng was on his way to the Xuanhe Prefecture. He had also missed her. Bai Zhiyan stared fixedly at Yundong. His breathing quickened slightly. Yes, you're right. Gao Feng gave that girl a bag of steamed buns. We also left Tonggu village overnight. Was it really you? I don't know the name of the village, but I did experience this before. That was the first time I saw Gao Feng. Yundong paused and suddenly frowned. But you said that Gao Feng was looking for someone for the key, but I don't know what key it is. Back then I didn't. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1390. Jade Key. Yundong suddenly stopped mid-sentence. She thought for a moment and asked, the key to the jade door you mentioned, could it be a jade pendant? Bai Zhiyan and Song Dejiang smiled in surprise. Yes, it's a jade pendant. Is it really with you? I do have one, but I found the jade pendant from the 2 refugees. Speaking of which, Yundong had almost forgotten about the jade pendant. She had kept it in her interspace back then. Now she probably had to search carefully. She did not know where it was. That's right, that's right. It's on those 2 refugees. Bai Zhiyan became a little excited. That jade pendant was on Bai Yang at that time. The refugees had come into contact with Bai Yang. They must have stolen the jade pendant at that time. That night, he was injured and suddenly had a high fever. He was in a daze. And there was only Gao Feng by his side. He had to take care of himself, and Bai Yang and Bai Yu. Actually, Gao Feng already knew when the 2 people entered the courtyard. It was just that he had to take care of Gao Feng, so he couldn't go out in time. In the end, one of them sneaked in and bumped into Bai Yang. That person wanted to carry Bai Yang away on the spot. It was Gao Feng who saved Bai Yang in time, but who knew that in that instant, the jade pendant hanging around Bai Yang's neck would be cut off and taken away by him? The room was dark, so Gao Feng couldn't see clearly. After saving Bai Yang, he let him stay with Bai Yu while he turned around to deal with the refugee, and forced the guy into the courtyard step by step. Unexpectedly, the other one outside had already been killed. It was just a chance meeting. There was no need for Gao Feng to ask for her name. However, no matter what, she had helped him deal with someone. Although he could handle it alone, it did give him less pressure. Gao Feng saw that this girl was thin and looked like a refugee, so he simply took the pancakes and steamed buns to express his gratitude. As for the two dead people's belongings that the girl had looted behind them, he did not care. Unexpectedly, the jade pendant entered this girl's pocket just like that. Gao Feng only realized that Bai Yang's jade pendant was missing a day after the carriage drove. However, when he looked back at that time, how could he find her in the vast sea of people? Especially when he didn't even know her name and age or who was around her. It was as difficult as ascending to the heavens. However, this person was right in front of him. Bai Zhiyan slowly closed his eyes. He didn't even know what to say. Fate in this world was so wonderful. He looked at Yundong. Then, where is the jade pendant? It's... Yundong was about to say that she had it with her, but then she realized that something was wrong. Who would carry an unfamiliar jade pendant that they had found on a refugee with them? It was not like she did not have the money to buy one. Hence Yundong changed her tone and said, "At home." "Which home?" "At the Hutai Alley in the capital, but I have to find it. I remember that when I packed my things, I put everything in a box. I don't know if I remember wrongly." Bai Zhiyan hurriedly became excited. "Then quickly look for it." Yundong immediately nodded. "Alright, I'll go back now." In fact, how could she not be excited? If that jade pendant was really the key, she would be able to obtain by Muzi very soon. This sudden surprise made her a little impatient. Shao Qingyuan also stood up and said to the two of them, "Then we'll go back first. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 1391. Where is your home? Seeing the two of them walk further and further away, Song Dejiang heaved a sigh of relief. It's rare that the jade pendant is still there. Yes. Bai Zhiyan also felt relieved. He had talked to Gao Feng before. Even if they found him, the jade pendant might not still be in her hands. After all, she was fleeing at that time. She might not have any silver on her along the way. Otherwise, why would she search for dead people's things? When she really could not survive, she might have pawned the jade pendant or sold it. At that time, it would be extremely difficult to find it again. However, Gao Feng had also said that the girl seemed to be quite capable at that time. She had such an exquisite crossbow on her, so she might not be desperate enough to become a jade pendant. Fortunately, the jade pendant was still there. Yundong and Shao Qingyuan did not even bring Tong Shuitao with them. They drove the carriage back to Hutai Alley. Mrs. Yu, who was at the door, was about to greet them when she saw them return. Unexpectedly, Yundong jumped down from the carriage and rushed into the courtyard. On the other hand, Shao Qingyuan was still standing beside the carriage. However, Mrs. Yu was a little afraid of him. In the end, she did not greet him and only stuck her head out to look at the courtyard next door. Sure enough, Yundong came out after a while. When she saw Mrs. Yu, she waved her hand. "Hello, sister-in-law." "Hello, hello." Then she watched helplessly as the carriage moved off again. "Why are you in such a hurry? What happened?" She shook her head and returned to her courtyard. Yundong sat in the carriage, holding the jade pendant in her hand. She did not speak for a long time. After a long time, she lifted the curtain and looked at Shao Qingyuan on the shaft. She pursed her lips and hesitated. Shao Qingyuan turned to look at her and suddenly smiled. "Let's talk about it when you want to." Yundong lowered her head slightly. Others might not know if the jade pendant was in the box, but as the person beside her, how could Shao Qingyuan not know? When they came to the capital, they didn't bring many things with them. Who would bring such an insignificant jade pendant? Yundong had almost forgotten where it was. She had rummaged through her space for a long time before finding it. Actually, she knew that Brother Shao had long suspected her. She had already made it very obvious several times in front of him. How could a smart person like him not feel anything? However, he did not ask anything. Perhaps he already had a guess in his heart, but he was not sure. Yundong scratched her head. It was not that she did not want to say it, but she just did not know how to say it. However, this person seemed to be very indulgent towards her. All right, sit back down. Be careful not to fall. Qingyuan pushed her inside and let her sit in the carriage. Yundong was a little discouraged and rubbed her face hard. The carriage returned to the Song mansion not long after. The two of them strode towards the main courtyard. Zhiyan and Song Dejiang were getting anxious. Seeing the two of them enter, Zhiyan immediately looked at their hands expectantly. Yundong quickly took out the jade pendant. Is this it? Zhiyan took it. At this moment, he was already supported by Song Dejiang to sit at the head of the bed. At first glance, his eyes lit up. Yes, this is it. This is the jade key to the jade door. Really? Yundong finally felt relieved. She asked anxiously. Then let's quickly take the jade pendant and open the jade door to find Muzi. Where is your house? When are we going? If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1392. It's important to find your parents free. As soon as Yundong finished speaking, Zhiyan and Song Dejiang were stunned. They looked at each other. The atmosphere instantly became a little strange. And neither Zhiyan nor the other spoke. Qingyuan narrowed his eyes and suddenly reached out to take the jade pendant from Zhiyan's hand. Zhiyan only felt that the jade pendant was gone. Qingyuan looked at Song Dejiang. Why? Are you going back on your word? Of course not. Song Dejiang hurriedly shook his head and explained. The Bai family is in the Lingzhou prefecture, but the Bai family has always been isolated from the world. Outsiders don't know where they are. If you want to enter the Bai family, you need someone from the main family to lead the way. Otherwise, you will get lost. Yundong frowned, and Zhiyan sighed. There are too few people who can enter the Bai family. I can enter, and so can Uncle Master Song. But I can't travel now, and Uncle Master can't leave the capital. I'm afraid I won't be able to go to Lingzhou prefecture for a while. Spiritual state prefecture? Yundong frowned. What about Feng? Feng is in Xuanhe prefecture now. I don't know his exact location, so I can only send a letter to Xuanhe prefecture's Huimen Medical Center first. After Feng reads the letter, he will rush back. Zhiyan knew that she was anxious, but he still said, why don't you wait a little longer? At most a month. When I recover, I will personally bring you to the Bai family. Although the Bai family had never allowed outsiders to enter, Qingyuan and his wife had done the Bai family a great favor. Be it saving Bai Yang or using their Muzi, the Bai family would remember this favor and compensate them. Zhiyan looked at Qingyuan. This man was very talented. If he could receive guidance from his grandfather, it would be the best repayment. Yundong was silent for a moment before finally nodding. Okay. She glanced at the jade pendant in Qingyuan's hand. But this jade pendant is temporarily in our custody. Although Zhiyan felt that it was inappropriate, he also knew that Yundong no longer trusted them because of Muzi. Hence, he finally nodded and said, this jade pendant is now the only key to the jade door. If it's gone, then Muzi. Don't worry, I care about Muzi more than you do. Therefore, I will definitely take good care of this jade pendant. I definitely won't lose it. That's good. Zhiyan looked at the jade pendant reluctantly and finally retracted his gaze. He was a little tired. The fluctuation of emotions just now made his body temperature rise again. Yundong hoped that he would recover as soon as possible, so she immediately pulled Qingyuan away. The two of them left the Song residence and got into the carriage. Qingyuan asked her, aren't you in a hurry? Yundong smiled. Of course I'm in a hurry. But as you said, we have to do things one by one. Since we're in the capital, we should settle the things here first. It's very important to find your parents. Qingyuan reached out and hugged her. I'm fine. But I'm related. Yundong actually knew that ever since Qingyuan realized that his parents doted on him, his emotions had been a little unstable. Although he did not say anything, he yearned for it in his heart. Qingyuan sighed slightly and hugged her even tighter. When they got home, Yundong put the jade pendant away and hid it back in her space. Since they were going to the prefecture of Spirit State after Zhiyan recovered from his illness, they had to move faster in the capital. The renovation of the shop was handed over to Carpenter Feng and his disciple. Yundong did not know how it was going, but he planned to go and take a look tomorrow. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1393. Recruiting. Next, it was time to recruit. Yundong felt a headache coming on when he thought of the female shopkeeper he needed. Unexpectedly, Qingyuan said, "It's actually not difficult to find a female shopkeeper who's literate and knows the rules while facing the madams and misses of the aristocratic families." Yundong's eyes lit up. "You have a candidate? There are many grannies from the palace who leave the palace to retire when they're old. Actually, they're very good at this." Yundong was stunned. "Yes, Madame Qiu of Xuanhe Manor. Although she was not from the palace, she was still a nanny. Some of the grannies in the palace used to serve nobles. Those who could survive until they left the palace were all slick people. Except, where can I find a nanny like that?" Qin residence. Yundong was puzzled. It was obvious that Qingyuan knew more about this. When the emperor rewarded Qin Wenzheng's residence, he also bestowed servants to the Qin residence. One of them was a nanny. "Yes, I heard about it when I was in the palace. Since there was a nanny in the Qin residence, she must have known a nanny who had left the palace." Yundong's eyes lit up. She planned to visit the Qin family tomorrow after going to the shop. In addition to this, they also wanted to buy people. Not only in the shop, but also at home. There were only the four of them at home now. Yundong usually brought Tong Shuitao along when she went out, and Qingyuan would also bring Shaowen along. There was always a need for an old maid or a guard at home. The next time they encountered a situation where Song Dejiang came to look for them but couldn't find them, someone would come to inform them. She had been busy for the past few days. Now it was time to organize it. The next day, Yundong brought Tong Shuitao to the shop to check on the situation. Qingyuan and Shaowen went to the brokers. When he arrived at the shop, he saw Carpenter Feng busying himself with his two disciples. The counter was already done, and more than half of the tables and stools in the shop in front had been made. Yundong touched them. They were very sturdy and did not hurt. Indeed, the quality was good. Carpenter Feng wiped his sweat and came over. "Boss, I've already found a craftsman to remove the two walls in the backyard yesterday. They're being repaired now. Do you want to take a look? Let's go take a look." Yundong immediately went to the backyard. The craftsman was hired by Carpenter Feng. Yundong handed over the renovation to him. It was up to him to find any helpers. The backyard was a little chaotic. Yundong walked around and came back, letting them continue with their work. Then he took a brush and paper and started writing. Carpenter Feng was puzzled. "Boss, do you think there's anything else that needs to be changed?" "Oh no, I'm just writing a recruitment notice and posting it outside. I plan to recruit a few female workers. Isn't the shop in need of manpower?" Although they had to buy people, it was impossible for all the employees in the shop to be bought. As long as it was one of their own in the kitchen, the waiters in the hall could be found outside. "Female workers?" Carpenter Feng thought for a moment and suddenly asked, "Do you have any requirements?" "Clean and tidy. It's best if the person who likes to smile and is slightly tall. She has a gentle personality and is hardworking. She also has to be literate." With this calculation, it seemed like she had a lot of requirements. Carpenter Feng was also surprised. This request was more than just a lot. It would probably be difficult to find someone who could read. But Yundong still wrote the notice and pasted it at the door. Before she left, she instructed Carpenter Feng, "If anyone comes to inquire, help me introduce the shop." "All right, boss." Yundong left. As soon as she left, someone who had been staring at the shop came forward and squinted at the words written on the notice. "If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 1394. The shop recruits different workers after reading the notice carefully from top to bottom. The person knew what to do and turned to leave. Carpenter Peng originally wanted to come out and ask, but he didn't expect to only see his back. That person quickly left Jinlan Street. Not long after, he appeared in a restaurant. He looked left and right. When he saw the person in the corner, he hurriedly ran over. "Young master, there's a situation in the shop on Jinlan Street." Tang Qijing was eating. When he heard this, he quickly swallowed the fish in his mouth and took a sip of water. He asked, "What's the situation?" "Then the shop is going to recruit." Tang Qijing frowned when he heard that. He was a little disinterested. So be it. What's so strange about that? Since Shao Qingyuan's shop is about to open, isn't it normal to find a couple of assistants? I want you to keep an eye on Shao Qingyuan. You don't have to report these unimportant matters to me. No, young master, that shop hires different workers. Different in what way? Shao Qingyuan's shop hires female shop assistants. The servant couldn't help but raise his voice. What? What? However, two puzzled voices followed. Not only Tang Qijing, but there was also a familiar voice behind. Tang Qijing was stunned and looked up. When he saw who it was, he hurriedly stood up and almost knocked over the chair behind him. However, he couldn't care less. A smile instantly appeared on his face as he said obsequiously, "Your Highness, why are you here?" Xilan glanced at him. "If you can be here, can't I be here too?" Tang Qijing shook his head again and again. "Of course you can. You can go anywhere in the capital, sir." Xilan snorted and quickly averted his gaze to look at the servant standing behind Tang Qijing. "You repeat what you said just now." The servant trembled and was a little confused. What did he just say? Oh, right. He remembered. He immediately repeated the last sentence. That waiter hired by Shao Qingyuan's shop is a female waiter. Xilan narrowed his eyes. Shao Qingyuan? Shao Qingyuan came to the capital? Tang Qijing replied softly, "Yes, I think so." Xilan's dissatisfied gaze instantly landed on him. "When did this happen? Why didn't you tell me?" However, the imperial physicians outside had been coming back one after another recently. He just didn't pay attention to them. A few days ago, a troupe came to his house, and the scenes they played were quite novel, so he had been staying at home for the past few days to have fun. He didn't expect to miss news of Shao Qingyuan. Tang Qijing groaned inwardly. "Your Highness, it's not that I don't want to tell you, but I'm not sure if this person is the same Shao Qingyuan from back then. That's why I got someone to keep an eye on his shop and confirm his identity first before reporting to your Highness." To be honest, he really did not intend to report it to the royal prince. Xilan snorted coldly. "So it's confirmed now? And not yet. What does this Shao Qingyuan you saw look like?" Tang Qijing paused and described Shao Qingyuan's appearance that day. "He's tall and big, but his face is a little cold. He doesn't look easy to get along with." Xilan's eyes turned cold. "It's him. He didn't expect to see him again so soon. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible."